everybody, this is KM. Welcome back to my channel. And if you're new here, my channel is all about discovering or rediscovering musicals. I have done a bunch of reactions, I've done video essays, I've done honestly everything that I can think of to show me discovering or rediscovering musicals, musical theater, all that jazz.
And all that jazz.
I've even done a movie review on this channel. Even though this is a musical theater channel, I just thought it'd be fun to do a movie review. And today we are doing something new again. Today we are going to compare story adaptations and decide which one is better. And if you clicked on this video, you know that story is going to be 13. Not the TV show 13. I know there's another 13 out there, but this 13 is on the musical 13, about a preteen boy going through preteen drama and stuff. It's that 13. It was originally a Broadway musical show created by Jason Robert Brown, Dan Eilish, and Robert Horn back in 2008, man. I'm sorry, it's like 7 in the morning. It was first written as a Broadway musical in 2008, and later on that same year, it was written into a children's novel written by the same Jason Robert Brown and Dan Eilish, and it was titled 13 a Novel. Brilliant title. And then in 2022, the musical is finally adapted into a film musical adaptation, 13 the Musical. Again, very creative, these geniuses right here.
I'm so smart.
Now, I have reacted to, watched, read all these different versions of 13 for the last few months. And while I was studying these different adaptations, it became more and more apparent to me how different each one was. From the characters themselves, to the timelines, to even the main themes expressed in each story. Just very, very different. I've already said this before in a previous video, but I genuinely felt like some sort of Doctor Strange character.
Honestly, I feel like I watched 3 different stories. You know, like with Doctor Strange, and he sees all these different realities, all these different versions of our world and that whole idea in the Marvel universe, you know? I feel like I did that. I feel like I saw 3 different stories. I'm seeing different realities of Evan's life and where it can go based on the choices he made. Because I'm genuinely getting all the different stories kind of muddled, and I feel like Doctor Strange, where my head's just like, whoa, what am I looking at here?
It truly felt like there were different alternative universes for each 13 story, and depending on the character's choices that affected the rest of the story. I felt like I was in a whole Marvel universe type thing.
I don't have the time stone anymore.
It's just honestly wild to me how the creators of each story made such drastic changes to the characters or to the themes or to the just the story itself is just so different. And it makes me wonder why they decided to make such different choices in each adaptation of 13. It's a simple story. It's not a difficult story to understand. It's about a preteen boy wanting to become a man. And there's all this preteen school drama that goes along with that story. But anyways, for the last couple of weeks, I've seen other creators do this type of comparison video concept. And while watching those videos, I thought, hey, I'm studying a musical and all their adaptations, and they're very different. Why not also do a comparison video thing? And oh man, I regret that idea. I was in way over my head. This video became a lot harder than I thought it was going to be. Not because it's a difficult idea, it's a difficult thing to script, it's just so tedious. Especially in a story like 13 where there are so many changes, it's like, how do I talk about this without it sounding repetitive? It's honestly such a daunting task, and I wish I never had this idea in the first place. There's a bit of me wanting to just stop and just move on to the actual video that I had planned on making, which is my video essay on 13 the musical. But the thing is, I am too far into this script to just stop now, so I might as well just get through it.
You got this!
So hopefully you enjoy this unnecessary, detailed comparison video of 13 a Novel, and 13 the Musical. Here we go. If you aren't familiar with the 13th story, here is a brief summary. After his parents' divorce, Evan, a 12-year-old Jewish boy, is forced to move to Indiana, leaving behind everything he knew in New York. This is terrible timing as Evan is going to turn 13 in October, and as Jewish customs state, he needs to have a bar mitzvah to celebrate this coming-of-age moment, as it signifies him becoming a man. But instead, Evan now has to deal with his parents' divorce and the challenges that come with navigating a new school. This idea is the bare bones of the 13th story, and how it is taken is different in every version. So let's get into it. Every story starts in the same location, New York City. In the musical, right from the very beginning, we are introduced to the whole cast made up of 13 characters. Wait, 13 characters? Well, that's fun. Now, besides Evan, the rest of the cast plays as Evan's New York friends, and not their main characters. But that changes when he moves to Indiana. In this scene, they help create Evan's world of New York, where kids play, gossip, and sing about the hardships of becoming a teenager.
You don't understand, Mom!
The musical opens up with Evan's starting line.
I'm Evan Goldman. I live at 224 West 92nd Street, in the heart of Manhattan. And my life just went to hell.
Which kicks off the opening number, 13/Becoming a Man. Also, side note, if you listen to this song in the original cast recording, you can hear this.
And I'm just about to turn, God, I'm gonna turn 13. I wanna turn 13.
I've never noticed that until now, and I think it's so funny they kept that in. In the song, we learn about Evan, his parents' messy divorce, and his wish to have a party, aka a bar mitzvah. He believes the party will make everything better, and the pressures of becoming a man won't be so daunting. After the song, Evan gets a phone call from his mom, and he learns they are moving to Appleton, Indiana.
You never said anything about moving? Where? Indiana? No!
In the movie, we open up to a scene where Evan is trying to study, while his Rabbi Shapiro, makes fun of him for his lack of Hebrew speaking skills. In their dialogue, we get quite the expedition scene, learning about what a bar mitzvah is, and that Evan is moving to Walkerton, Indiana, not Appleton this time. I don't know why they decided to change that. Then his mom comes to pick up Evan and rushes him to get ready to leave. Now, already there are quite a few changes. One, Evan has a rabbi, where in the musical there is no rabbi. Second, Evan already knows about the move to Indiana, whereas musical Evan had no idea until the end of the opening number. No! Obviously. Third, we actually get to meet Evan's mom, Jessica, whereas in the musical, the mom is mentioned, but we never see her. And that's for all of the adults in the musical. Adults are absent entirely from the story, besides some mentions here and there. No rabbi, no mom or dad, nobody. Teenagers only. Once that scene is done, we finally have Evan's starting line from the musical, kicking off the opening number 13, and just 13. The writers cut out the becoming a man section entirely, making the musical number lose about 2 minutes of its original material. Instead, in the middle of the song, we have a scene with Evan's parents. Evan's dad comes to say goodbye, and Evan tries one more time to get his parents to see reason. When it's obvious nothing will change, Evan runs off, and 13 starts back up again. The entire song is a bit different with a lot of lyric changes here and there, the dance break being shorter, and at the very end of the song, nobody sings any big riffs, but instead focuses on some dance moves. Also, all of the kids in this number, I think, do not end up appearing anywhere else in the movie. They don't represent or play any of the other main characters like the musical does. Once the song is almost done, we have another scene between Evan and Jessica, where Jessica tries to scold Evan for running off. But that doesn't work very well. Then the song ends as they drive off to Indiana. Now, there are obviously no songs in the book, so we can't compare that aspect, but as far as the story and characters go, there are a lot of differences. First off, everything is from Evan's perspective. Now, some of you might be thinking, well, duh, of course, he's the main character, is he not? And to that I say, yes. But there's a reason why I'm mentioning this. While Evan is the main character in every story, in the musical and in the movie, there are a lot of different perspectives. In the musical, we not only get to see things from Evan's perspective, but Patrice's, Lucy's, Brett's, and others as well. In the movie, this is done even more so. We get a lot of screen time with Lucy and Jessica, and we get some scenes with Patrice, Brett, and Brett's friends. Because we are able to see things from others' perspectives, we as the audience are in the know. We get the gossip of what's happening outside of Evan's world. But in the book, it's solely on Evan's POV. We don't get to see what other characters are thinking and doing, which is going to play a lot into the story later on. But just take my word for it for now. Because it's from Evan's POV, we actually get to witness the divorce happening right there on the page. Chapter 1 opens up with Evan's mom and dad telling him they are getting a divorce. Well, actually it opens up reading about Evan's thoughts on Dad's new woman, Angela. Bruh. But you get the point. The story is not starting off very well for poor Evan. We also get to meet Evan's New York friends, Steve and Bill, and we learn more about why Evan's mom decides she wants to move to Indiana. Also, Evan's mom is named Ruth here, whereas in the movie her name is Jessica. Again, I don't know why they did that. They already had her name in this book. Why not use it again? By the end of the chapter, Evan and Ruth say goodbye to New York and drive to Indiana, where they have a pretty big argument about whether or not to have a bar mitzvah, which never happened in the other versions. Musical Evan and movie Evan both want to have a party, whereas book Evan could care less. This chapter also introduces two very big aspects in the story that the musical nor the movie really touch on, which is the divorce and Evan's feelings towards it, and the religious journey Evan goes through. These two aspects are actually the reason I decided to include the book in this comparison video. I'll touch more on those topics later. Back to the musical. In a dramatic shift of scenery, Evan is suddenly in Appleton, Indiana, aka his new home. This, in my opinion, would be called the inciting incident of the story. Evan's world has changed, and there's no going back. Which then immediately moves to what I would call plot point number 1, as this scene is the transition from Act 1 of the story arc to Act 2. We meet Patrice, a sweet, book-smart girl who bonds with Evan over having divorced parents. This then leads into Patrice's first solo number, The Lamest Place in the World, where she becomes Evan's guide to this new life. The song also indicates time is passing. We don't really see this idea happening on stage, but through the composition and lyrics, it gives the impression summer is passing quickly. The lyrics also show Evan and Patrice's growing friendship, and Patrice's budding feelings towards Evan. The entire scene is pretty slow, and blocking is very, very minimal on stage. But it's still an important part of the story, as Patrice is the one who makes Evan realize he needs a place for his bar mitzvah. In the movie, this scene is drawn out a lot more, but I would still consider it the turning point in the story from Act 1 to Act 2. Evan and Jessica move to live with Jessica's mom and Evan's grandma, Ruth. Hold up. So you decide to give the grandma Ruth's name, but not the actual mom of the story Ruth's name? Seriously? There are so many details like this where I kept thinking, why? You literally have all the pieces to make this movie happen, from not only the original musical, but even the book. And you decide, no, instead of Appleton, it's Walkerton now. And no, instead of naming the mom Ruth, let's call her Jessica and give the grandma the name Ruth. Like, in the grand scheme of things, this is not that big of a deal, but it seems so unnecessary. Anyway, sorry, I went off on a tangent there. During breakfast, Evan decides he is going to plan the bar mitzvah on his own. When Patrice drops by, which I guess Ruth and Patrice are very close, because I don't know a lot of kids who would just come on into any granny's house, but whatever. Ruth is the one who introduces Evan to Patrice, and the two decide to hang out. Unlike the musical, where Patrice is helping Evan look for a place to have his bar mitzvah, Patrice is there to solely show Evan around the town. We learn really quickly that Patrice is an environmental activist, because for some reason that is a character trait we as the audience must know about her. And then Patrice offers to show Evan around, starting the song, The Lamest Place in the World. Oh, before we go any further, we meet Archie way earlier in the story. Patrice introduces Evan to Archie, and we learn pretty quickly he has a big crush on a girl named Kendra. And then we move on to the song. This is one of the few songs in the movie where lyric-wise, it actually stays the same. Because this is a movie, we actually get to see Patrice showing Evan around, eating ice cream, taking pictures, riding bikes, just having fun as summer passes by, which is a cool tool to use for the story. One last big change before I move on, though, is the romantic element between Evan and Patrice. In the musical, it is clear that Patrice is growing feelings for Evan by the end of her song. In the movie, though they are the exact same lyrics, Patrice shows no indication of growing a crush on Evan. She seems more appreciative of Evan and their friendship than anything else. I personally don't mind this, but it is a big change from the musical and the book. Speaking of the book, Chapter 2 and 3 would take up this section. Evan and his mom move in with Aunt Pam. Who is Aunt Pam? Seriously, why do we keep changing such insignificant details? So let me get this straight. In the musical, Evan and his mom move into an abandoned house next to Patrice's home. In the movie, Evan and his mom move in with his grandma. And in the book, Evan and his mom move in with Aunt Pam, who turns out not to be his aunt, just a college friend of his mom. Sure, okay. Is everyone on the same page now?
I don't mean to make things difficult.
Chapter 2 is pretty short, with Evan's mom desperate to find a rabbi and Evan trying to make her stop. She ends up finding one online who lives close to them, and throughout the rest of the book, Evan meets with this rabbi named Rabbi Wiener. Why? We went from Shapiro to Wiener.
That's so stupid, so childish.
Okay, I can understand why they decided to change this name. This makes sense. Anyways, throughout the rest of the book, Evan will be meeting with this rabbi to study his Hebrew. Evan absolutely hates this, which again is very different from the musical and movie. Musical Evan would like to have one to make friends, and movie Evan wants to plan one to prove he can do it. Book Evan seems like he wants nothing to do with being a Jew. Also, the whole rabbi and studying Hebrew plot is different. In the musical, this plot of searching for a rabbi and learning Hebrew is non-existent, and in the movie, Evan already has a rabbi, Rabbi Shapiro. And because the movie is set in 2022, there is this thing called Zoom. At least I think that's Zoom, so Evan doesn't have to look for a rabbi. In Chapter 3, Evan meets Patrice while playing with his Aunt Pam's dog, Simon. The two connect and hang out throughout the next couple of weeks. She shows him around town, including the church Evan will have for his bar mitzvah, which is apparently incredibly big. So big that Evan is worried he won't be able to fill the place up. This line right here, I believe, kickstarts to Act 2, as this line becomes Evan's motivation throughout the rest of the book. Evan becomes incredibly determined not to have an empty party. Even though he likes Patrice and thinks of her as a friend, he realizes she isn't a popular kid. She doesn't have other friends besides him, so she won't be able to help him. One last thing, Patrice does mention Archie in this chapter, but Evan never actually gets to meet him until way later. Patrice says they're friends, but it also sounds like Patrice is not all that comfortable with Archie, so in Evan's point of view, and ours as the readers, Archie just seems like a bit of a creep. After meeting Patrice, Evan comes across Brett, who turns out to be the most popular boy in Evan's school. He is the typical cool and handsome football star stereotype with a lot of muscle and very little brains. Evan overhears Brett talking to his friends, Eddie and Malcolm, about getting together with a girl named Kendra. But because Kendra is, as Brett puts it, a good girl, Brett can't figure out a way to ask Kendra out. Eddie and Malcolm come up with a plan in the form of a song titled Hey Kendra, but it's quite obvious they have no idea what they're doing. Hey Kendra, the song is over the top and quite cringy, with the lyrics being surprisingly inappropriate. The lyrics come off as jokes, but I just don't find them funny, and apparently Brett agrees because he immediately stops them. Stop! This is also where the tongue jokes start to come in, and
Kendra is a good girl. I can't just hit on her like whack-a-mole. If I do that, I will never get the tongue. The tongue? The tongue!
If you watched my other videos, you already know how fed up I am with these jokes, so I am not going to go over this again, but just for anyone new watching, this is Brett's goal throughout the rest of the story. Date Kendra and get the tongue. It really shows how shallow and immature Brett, Eddie, and Malcolm are. Seeing that Eddie and Malcolm are useless in coming up with a plan, Evan gets an idea. If Evan can fix Brett's problem and befriend him, then he can be friends with everyone at school. And if he can become friends with everyone at school will come to his party. So Evan walks up and makes a suggestion to Brett he invite Kendra to a scary movie. Why a scary movie? I don't know. I don't know why these boys think that. A scary movie is a good date idea. I mean, I guess some girls might like a horror movie date. I'm sure there's girls out there that love that kind of date idea, but no, I don't like scary movies. For some reason, Brett and the boys are amazed by this idea. Whoa! They are so amazed, in fact, that Brett names him the Brain, because he's smart, I guess. The next part of the scene, we meet Kendra and Lucy. Kendra, like Brett, is also a stereotype. The head cheerleader and most popular girl in school for her good looks and sweet personality. However, she is also shown to be quite naive and oblivious, which also gives her the dumb blonde persona. Then there is her best friend Lucy, the typical mean girl. Also a cheerleader and popular girl, Lucy is everything Kendra isn't, which makes her incredibly unlikable to her classmates. Where Kendra is kind, Lucy is mean. Where Kendra is beautiful, Lucy is apparently not beautiful. Lucy thinks of herself as fat, which we'll get into that later because that's a whole discussion. As Hey Kendra starts up again, it's quite obvious to Evan, and likewise to us as the audience, that Brett likes Kendra, Kendra likes Brett, and Lucy likes Brett, but Brett doesn't care for Lucy. And Eddie and Malcolm are just happy to be here. Through the song, Brett asks Kendra out on a date to the movies, and Lucy, seeing what is happening, tries to get Kendra to say no. However, Kendra, super excited about the date, says yes, despite Lucy's obvious displeasure. Regardless of the tension, the boys celebrate, and Brett thanks Evan for his help and says he'll see him at school. This introduction scene to all the main players of the musical gives us great context into who Evan is going to be dealing with later in the story. Brett can't seem to do anything by himself and needs others to do the thinking for him. Eddie and Malcolm are Brett's brainless followers who do whatever Brett wants because he is the popular guy in school. Kendra is a pushover, naive to the fact that her best friend is an awful girl, and Lucy is a controlling manipulator. Such great characters. Now, in the book, this whole section of meeting all the major characters of the story is expanded upon a lot more, like 3 chapters more. There are entire scenes that don't happen in the musical, and because of these scenes, it starts to make the book feel like its own story entirely. At the end of chapter 3, Evan and Patrice are hanging out at an ice cream parlor when Brett, Kendra, Lucy, Eddie, and Malcolm— wait, no, not Malcolm. Fudge. What?
Language.
Why is his name Fudge all of a sudden? See what I mean about unnecessary changes? Anyways, Brett, Kendra, Lucy, Eddie, and Fudge— is that even a name or is it supposed to be a nickname from something? Walk in, and Evan quickly figures out who they are. But instead of Evan walking up to Brett like in the musical, Brett is the one who comes over to him and starts a conversation. He immediately calls him Brain because he's from New York. That makes no sense. Even though it's a dumb nickname, at least in the musical it makes sense, as Evan was the one who came up with the date idea, prompting Brett to see Evan as a smart guy. But here, Brett just calls him Brain out of nowhere. Also, the whole Hey Kendra scene from the musical does not happen here, which would include the part where Evan comes up with the movie date idea. In the book, Brett and Kendra already seem a lot closer than they do in the musical, so the Hey Kendra scene wouldn't make sense. Anyways, it's not really clear why Brett decides to talk to Evan, but it's quickly evident how much of a jerk Brett is even towards adults. But Evan does not seem to realize this. He actually thinks Brett and his gang are really, really cool. Out of nowhere, Brett invites Evan to hang out with their group, and again, it's not clear why Brett invites Evan, it just happens. Evan, excited about the idea, asks what Patrice thinks, but Lucy immediately says she isn't invited. There are hints in the chapter that Patrice, Lucy, and Kendra actually know each other more than we think, but Evan doesn't care and decides to accept the invite despite Patrice's warnings and obvious anger. Chapter 4 is all about Evan hanging out with Brett and his friends, and we continue to learn how mean these kids are. They are bullies, gossipers, and absolute jerks not only to people outside their group, but also to each other. However, Evan chooses to ignore these traits as he desperately wants them to like him and become one of the popular kids. He is so ignorant, in fact, that when the other kids ask Evan if he and Patrice are friends, he denies it. and lets them make fun of Patrice behind her back. In chapter 5, we find Evan and Patrice studying Hebrew and writing out his speech for his ceremony. The two talk about Evan's outing with Brett and his gang, and Patrice is disgusted by their gossip and pranks. Ignoring this, Evan announces he is going to invite them to his party, and Patrice, while trying to be understanding, warns Evan they are going to ruin his party. Frustrated, Evan asks why she is so against them, and learns she used to be best friends with Kendra and Lucy before middle school. They had quite the history together, but sometime between elementary and middle school, the girls started changing, and Patrice wasn't changing with them, whether it was clothes, interest, friends, etc. And because Patrice wasn't changing, the two left her. Patrice is obviously hurt by this still, but Evan dismisses her feelings. This whole section about Patrice's friendship with Lucy and Kendra is not in the musical, but it is a cool backstory to explain maybe why the girls act the way they do towards Patrice. Because in the musical, it is never explained why everyone hates her so much. Now, I'm guessing you noticed I've skipped the movie in this section, and that's because there's nothing to talk about. There is no Hey Kendra scene, and the introductions for all the main characters in the story don't happen until Evan starts school. So summer is basically a montage in the number The Lamest Place in the World, and then we skip right to the first day of school. This is where the plot starts to diverge into different directions, so just a warning here, it's gonna start becoming a little more confusing. Because he accomplished his goal in becoming friends with the popular kids, Evan is optimistic everything will work out. So, on the first day of school, Evan gets ready to hand out his invitations to his bar mitzvah, confident everyone will say yes. However, Patrice warns him the other kids will not come once they find out she is going too. Evan doesn't understand this, and instead of hearing her out, he promises Patrice that everything will be fine. This starts the reprise 13, where Evan hands out invitations to everyone while Patrice tries to help. At first, Brett and the kids are fine with going, but when they find out Patrice is also invited, they give Evan an ultimatum: them or Patrice. At first, Evan chooses Patrice, but out of panic, he takes back her invitation and rips it in front of everyone. Shocked, humiliated, and betrayed, Patrice runs away while the rest of the kids celebrate. The reprise for 13 starts again, with all the kids dancing and singing to Evan about how excited they are to go to his party. Evan doesn't really acknowledge this, as he is so upset by what he just did. So he goes looking for Patrice. In the book, this betrayal is handled a little differently, but no less humiliating, and actually paints Evan in a worse light. At the end of chapter 5, we read about Evan hanging out with Brett and his group more, which results in him seeing Patrice less. It gets to the point where Evan stops answering Patrice's phone calls entirely. Before school starts, Evan writes out his invitations and mails them, but hesitates with Patrice's invite. He decides not to mail hers. You're such a great friend, Evan. The first day of school starts in chapter 6, where Brett shows Evan around, introduces him to, well, everyone, and even invites Evan to their lunch table. It seems like a great morning for Evan, until the discussion about his bar mitzvah comes up. When Evan asks the other kids if they are going, everyone seems hesitant and looks to Brett for an answer. Brett doesn't seem to care that much, and says maybe, not giving Evan a clear answer. This is when Patrice walks in and sees everyone's invitations. Evan sees the moment it dawns on her that he never mailed her invitation. She confronts Evan about it, but instead of the truth, he lies to Patrice, saying he forgot to mail hers. But she sees right through it. Patrice calls him out on it and runs off, basically ending their friendship right there. And Evan has the audacity to feel no sympathy for her.
The audacity!
And now, if we look at the movie, oh boy. The movie changes a lot of things, from characters to scenes to even the songs. After the musical number, The Lamest Place in the World, we skip right to the first day of school, where we meet the rest of the cast. And man, these characters are so different from the musical and book. Like, night and day difference. When Evan and Patrice get off the bus, he witnesses the dynamics of Lucy, Kendra, and Brett. We, as the viewers, learn Kendra and Lucy have a genuine friendship. However, that friendship starts to break a little when Lucy finds out that Kendra has been talking to Brett all summer, despite not being allowed to have her phone. Whenever she did have her phone, she would talk to Brett, revealing the two have a crush on each other. Lucy feels hurt by this. It is also shown that Lucy has a crush on Brett, but this crush is kind of sidelined by her hurt feelings. In Wikipedia, it says Brett and Kendra both have feelings for each other and want to share their first kiss together, but Kendra's best friend Lucy also likes Brett and is fed up with always being outshined by Kendra. I don't get that at all. Yes, Brett and Kendra definitely have feelings for each other, and the entire movie is kind of revolved around these two wanting to kiss. I mean, they have a whole song about it. But I never got the impression Lucy was jealous of Kendra. In the musical and book, yes, definitely yes. But in the movie, it seems like Lucy feels more betrayed by Kendra than anything else. Anywho, I've Been Waiting, a brand new song written for the movie, starts where Kendra and Brett talk about their summer, getting to know each other, and wanting to make things official. Evan, watching all of this, asks Patrice to introduce him, but Patrice immediately says no, telling him they're not friends. Seeing Patrice won't help him, Evan walks up to them and introduces himself to Brett and Kendra instead. They are shown to be extremely nice, popular kids, like really nice popular kids. I'm used to seeing popular kids being so mean in movies, so this is definitely a first for me. After one more chorus of I've Been Waiting, the popular kids show Evan around school, and he ends up sitting with them for lunch. Thinking they're pretty cool, he invites them all to his bar mitzvah, and despite some hesitation, they all agree. And if things weren't so different already, here's where things get really wild. Right after Evan invites them, we see some kids being mean to Patrice. Evan tries to help her out, but when Patrice realizes Evan invited the popular kids to his party, she gets mad at him. Seeing she's upset, Evan tries to figure out something else that could work, but Patrice blows him off and storms away, making it loud and clear that their friendship is over. None of this makes sense. Because the popular kids are so nice to Evan, we don't see why Patrice doesn't like them. Sure, maybe they don't click, but Patrice just really seems to hate them for no reason. In the timeline, here is usually the part where the big betrayal between Evan and Patrice happens, but there is no betrayal. Patrice acts like Evan betrayed her, but he didn't do anything. In the musical, the popular kids force Evan to make a choice, and he ends up choosing them over Patrice. He literally rips out her invitation in front of everyone. In the book, Evan personally makes the decision not to invite her, and when Patrice confronts him about it, he lies to her. This is also humiliating in its own way, as Patrice spent all summer with Evan, and the second he found something better, he turns his back on her. Here, the popular kids nor Evan have done anything to make Patrice feel humiliated or betrayed. The popular kids don't force Evan to choose, like they did in the musical, and Evan doesn't make a conscious decision to not invite Patrice like in the book. Nothing dramatic happens at all. In fact, he actually tries to find another solution on the spot to make everyone happy, but Patrice is the one who blows him off. It's really confusing. And because of this scene, it paints Patrice in a pretty bad way. Now, around this time frame is where we are officially introduced to our last main character, Archie, at least in the musical and book. While Evan is looking for Patrice, Archie, a kid with muscular dystrophy, shows up having heard about the betrayal. He confronts Evan about the situation as he is upset at Evan for humiliating Patrice. Apparently, Archie and Patrice are best friends who have been there for each other through thick and thin. School is not kind to either of them, and so they always stick up for one another when things get tough. Evan, frustrated with himself, wants to figure out a way to make it up to her, and Archie is willing to help on one condition. If Archie helps Evan, Evan has to help Archie get a date with Kendra.
Kendra, are you on crack? She wants me.
Evan immediately says no, knowing that's a bad idea. This is where Archie's solo song, Get Me What I Need, comes in, where he explains the school's social hierarchy and how Evan, being the new kid, is the only person who can help him. Despite being sick, Archie quickly shows Evan, as well as us the audience, he is not somebody to be pitied. He is observant, quick-witted, intelligent, and quite mature for his age. And while not the most family-friendly, Archie uses humor quite a bit, showing it's his way to cope with his situation. These are all great traits to have, but Archie, like everyone else in the story, has flaws. Archie's flaw is using his illness to guilt trip Evan into getting him a date with Kendra. And if Evan still doesn't help him,
So you can help me out and we can both do very well. Or I can turn around and make your life a living hell.
Lovely.
So yeah, not the most healthy kid here in more ways than one. By the end of the song, Archie nags Evan just enough that Evan finally relents and agrees to help Archie get a date. Book Archie is quite different. Unlike the musical, we actually get a lot of foreshadowing of who Archie is in earlier chapters. Patrice makes a few comments about the boy, and Evan gets peeks of Archie through his bedroom window. Unfortunately, they're not very positive. In the book version, Patrice and Archie are not friends. She seems like she tolerates him and tries to be nice whenever he's around, but it seems like Patrice is a bit creeped out by him. And whenever Evan sees Archie through the window, you know that feeling when something feels like it's crawling up your leg? That's the feeling you get when you read about Archie. We are finally introduced to him around the same time as the musical. After Patrice runs away, at the very end of chapter 6, Evan meets Archie. And chapter 7 is completely dedicated to the introduction of the character. I remember when I got to this part of the book, I was shocked at how different Archie was compared to the musical. Sure, he is still observant, quick-witted, and intelligent in his own way, but book Archie is a lot more manipulative. Remember when I talked about how Archie guilt trips Evan in the musical? Well, that's done here, but times 10. Evan and Archie meet with Archie seemingly trying to make conversation, but Evan, feeling extremely awkward, politely says he has to get to class. I'm sure we've all been in situations where you want to leave a conversation, but you're trying to find a nice way to do that, but the person just keeps talking. This is exactly the situation Evan has found himself in. No matter what Evan says, Archie keeps following him, talking and talking without getting the hint Evan doesn't want to talk to him. Eventually, Archie finally gets to the point on why he seeked out Evan in the first place. See, throughout his rambling, Archie kept saying Evan and him were friends, even though they just met. And when Evan finally agrees they are friends just to get Archie to leave him alone, Archie brings up Kendra. Now in the book it goes more into depth about why Archie has a crush on Kendra, and when I say more in depth, I mean literally just talking about that one time Kendra looked at him in class and smiled at him and bam! Feelings, love, marriage, family, the future.
I love you. I love you. I love you.
Apparently when a girl looks at a nerdy guy, that means the girl likes him. Golly, I mean, I can't say this is not accurate. This brings me back to middle school. Just one smile and Archie is already planning their future. Like musical Evan, book Evan says no. But while musical Archie just sings a fun little tune, and keep in mind, the reason why Archie goes to Evan for help in the first place is just payback for what Evan did to Patrice. Book Archie takes it to a whole nother level. Even though Archie and Patrice are not friends in the book, Archie has watched Patrice and Evan hanging out all summer from his bedroom window. And for some reason, in his mind, that means the two are together. Middle schoolers, I'm telling you. He knows the two have quote unquote broken up, so he comes up with a deal. If Archie helps Evan get back together with Patrice, Evan has to help Archie get a date with Kendra. Of course, this doesn't convince Evan at all because 1, the two weren't together in the first place. 2nd, Evan made up his mind that he doesn't want to be friends with Patrice. He literally made that choice himself. And 3, Archie and Patrice aren't friends. So why would Evan trust and help Archie in the first place? This is when a teacher walks by. Archie's whole demeanor completely changes. Suddenly, the razor-sharp focused eyes and determined, loud personality was gone. Now, there was only a sweet, soft, meek little boy. He tells the teacher he is doing okay, and that Evan was helping him get to class. The teacher thanks Evan and walks away, and this is where Archie takes it a step too far. Archie tells Evan that he could have told the teacher Evan pushed him. And while Archie laughs it off, it is very clear to Evan, as well as us the readers, Archie basically threatened Evan. If Evan doesn't do what he wants, Archie will make him pay, and there's nothing Evan can do about it. Archie even threatens he'll go to Evan's bar mitzvah, whether Evan invites him or not. Because who would deny a poor, sickly kid like Archie not to go to a party? At this point, Evan is desperate to get away, but before he can, Archie falls down and hurts himself. When Evan is about to rush to get a nurse, Archie gets back up, making Evan realize he was pretending. The boy makes it very clear that this was just to give an example
of what can happen if Evan doesn't help him. See, while musical Archie is at most guilt-tripping Evan into helping him, which in of itself is not great, but book Archie outright threatens Evan. And throughout the rest of the book, this is what Archie is like. He is calculating and always scheming to get what he wants, showing he values nobody but himself. And while musical Archie definitely has a crush on Kendra, book Archie, it's near obsession. Book Archie is also obsessed with the tongue. In the musical, only Brett, Eddie, and Malcolm talk about the subject. But in the book, Archie takes that idea and runs with it. It's all he seems to care about, whereas musical Archie never brought it up. It's all really off-putting. And thanks to the writing, you can truly feel Evan's desperation and fear of who Archie is and what he can do. So, not having much of a choice, Evan agrees. And Archie, happy he convinced, more like threatened, Evan, finally leaves him alone. Honestly, I was very surprised where the writers took this character, but there is a part of me that likes it, as usually disabled sick characters like Archie are painted as helpless victims with very little personality. Oh wait.
An angel, walking amongst us mere mortals.
Okay.
Movie Archie, everyone. Unfortunately, the writers went the complete opposite direction for Archie's character. His entire side plot is scrapped, his solo Get Me What I Need is cut, and all of his scenes from the musical are neither gone or cut down by a lot, reducing him to being a typical one-dimensional sick character. His whole personality is reduced to being stuck in a wheelchair and having a crush on Kendra, which doesn't go anywhere. Instead, we are given a side plot about Evan's mom, Jessica, who is struggling with a divorce. I'll talk about her side plot later, but just know it affects very little of the overall story, if at all. That's how insignificant her role is.
Ouch, that hurts.
Why they thought this was a better side plot than Archie's, I have no clue. But yeah, don't expect anything from movie Archie, because there's not much here. So the next scene / song, Opportunity, is a bit hard to pinpoint in the timeline for different reasons. In the original cast recording, the song is placed between Here I Come, which was cut from the final production, and Bad Bad News. Based on the lyrics, it appears this song is set during a football game right after the disaster that was the movie date. It's Lucy's solo song where she sings about the events that have happened, her jealousy of her best friend Kendra, and wanting Brett for herself. The song was cut, but if you buy the script, whether the original one or the junior version, you can see the song was moved to a different part of the timeline, placed between Get Me What I Need and What It Means to Be a Friend. Because of this change, the lyrics were rewritten to match the new placement. This version is set during cheer practice where the cheerleaders accuse Lucy of having a crush on Brett and being jealous of Kendra. While this is true, Lucy lashes out and tries to convince Kendra it would be a bad idea to get together with someone like Brett who only wants tongue. However, Kendra, excited about the date, ignores her. Also, another little change is Kendra seems a lot more independent and sure of herself in this version than in the final stage production. So because of that, Lucy's attempts at making Kendra doubt herself don't really work. Anyways, the song begins with Lucy sharing her struggles of being best friends with Kendra, living in her shadow, and wanting to find an opportunity.
You're so funny.
To date Brett. While this song was still cut out from the final production, they did keep the overall scene with the girls starting cheer practice. The dialogue is a bit different from the script, and there are some, frankly, shocking jokes.
Besides, there's lots of other boys you can go out with. So can you? Shut up, I'm fat. You're not everywhere.
That again, we'll get to later. Both versions have a rock style vibe to it with some cheers in between and bits of dialogue. The only other major difference is the first version had a slow bridge reprising Getting Ready, building up to the kissing moment between Lucy and Brett. I gotta say the way this slower moment built up to the last chorus of Opportunity was well done, and it is the reason I prefer this version over the second one. But no matter how it's written, Opportunity is definitely meant to be the villain song of the musical. It perfectly reveals Lucy's true thoughts and feelings and makes her stand out from the rest of the students. Opportunity was kept in for the movie, and the lyrics and dialogue is similar to the second iteration of the song.
It's also set during cheer practice where the girls accuse Lucy of being jealous of Kendra, which she denies, leading into the song. Like I said, Opportunity is the villain song for the musical, but what's interesting is this version of the song in the movie doesn't make her feel like a villain. The song makes Lucy seem more like a misunderstood, hurt girl than someone who has a serious grudge against her best friend. Yes, Lucy likes Brett, but getting together with Brett isn't Lucy's main goal like in the musical. Her goal now is getting back at Kendra for choosing a boy over her. What's supposed to be the villain song, where Lucy reveals her feelings and what she's planning to do in the story, Opportunity is now a song where Lucy just vents her frustration. Also, the song sounds less like rock music and more like, I don't know, marching band instrumentation that you would hear at a football game, which, I mean, the setting is on a football field, so that makes sense. And the getting ready section in the bridge is replaced with a brand new rap section, which is honestly disappointing, but whatever. And because the book is dependent on Evan's POV, we don't get to read Lucy's thoughts or feelings about anything, so this whole Opportunity section doesn't happen here. So we can skip the book for this one. So depending on which version of Opportunity you listen to, Patrice's second solo song comes next. What It Means to Be a Friend is where Patrice opens up to Archie about her thoughts on the idea of friendship and what she believes friends should be towards each other. Based on the lyrics, it sounds like she's had multiple friends throughout her life that have done her wrong, and she was hoping Evan was different, but he proved her wrong, and by extension, she was wrong once again. It's a beautiful, sentimental song that shows who Patrice is as a person and what she most desires. And even though Archie tries to convince Patrice to give Evan a second chance, Patrice decides she won't. Now, while the song was filmed for the movie, it got cut and is now a deleted scene. The lyrics are the exact same from the musical, but the execution feels different. Because Patrice wasn't betrayed by Evan, even though she feels like she was betrayed, the song feels more like she is complaining than anything else. It feels like she is singing, "Oh, woe is me, my life sucks because friend got new friends." I think it's because the lyrics don't really make sense. Patrice sings about all these past failed friendships she's had, like musical Patrice does, but because of the previous scene between her and Evan, I'm not sure if I believe her. She alludes that past friends have done her wrong, but was it really her friends who caused the friendships to fail? Or her? Yes, relationships of any kind take two people. But where it felt like musical Patrice was wronged, movie Patrice, it felt like she did the wrong. I mean, we just witnessed the fallout of Patrice and Evan's friendship, and who was the one that walked away? Patrice. Evan tried to find a way to make things work, but Patrice was the one who dismissed him. It makes me question, did she also do this in her past friendships as well? Sure, you could say Patrice is only being defensive after all of her past failed friendships and protecting herself, but then we get these last set of lyrics. She talks about giving up her summer for Evan, just for Evan to act like she wasn't even there during the first day of school, which didn't happen at all. This goes beyond hurt feelings. This is suddenly a case of someone being delusional. She's making up a story that didn't happen. Furthermore, the lyrics make her seem entitled and self-righteous. So I think it was really good they cut the song out, because otherwise it would have just confused the viewers and paint Patrice in an even worse light because of how they wrote her in this movie. This is actually the one song where they should have changed some of the lyrics because of how they wrote Patrice. And again, like Lucy, we don't get to read about Patrice's thoughts and feelings because the book is only written from Evan's perspective. We can only judge Patrice based on what Evan sees from her, which is quite unreliable. Moving on, we are finally building up to the big movie theater scene, and there are a series of events that happen that lead into this big moment in the story. So in the musical, even though it was Evan's idea that Brett should take Kendra to a horror movie, that didn't mean it was supposed to be a rated R movie. nor was Evan the one supposed to set up the date. However, Brett has it in his mind that because it was Evan's idea, Evan should be the one to get the tickets. And of course, the one movie Brett wants to see is a rated R movie titled The Bloodmaster. Obviously, Evan is baffled and doesn't know how to get rated R movie tickets since he is 12 years old, but Brett doesn't care. He even has the audacity to tell Evan to get his mom to buy the tickets. Like, who comes up with that? And if Evan doesn't do this, Brett threatens that no one will come to his party. In chapter 8, we're introduced to a completely new scene that is neither in the musical or movie. Evan is feeling lonely as he can't find the popular kids during lunch. It isn't until gym class that he finally finds Brett, Eddie, and Fudge, but they just laugh at him when he asks where they were. It gets worse when Brett trips Evan during track, making him fall. When the coach comes over, Brett says Evan hurt himself and offers to take him to the nurse. But instead of going to the nurse's office, Brett takes Evan to an empty room. This is where Brett tells Evan he needs his help setting up a date with Kendra. Instead of Evan thinking of the movie date idea like in the musical, Brett is actually the one who comes up with the idea, but for some reason he needs Evan to execute this. Evan doesn't see the big issue giving Brett a couple of ideas to make the movie date happen, but he finds out 1, it's a rated R movie, 2, Brett's mom can't come, and 3, there is security at the movie theater who are always watching.
I'm watching you, Wazowski. Always watching.
With these issues, Brett tells Evan he has to get his own mom to buy them tickets, which again, what the heck? Who in their right mind asks another kid to get their mom to do something like that for them? That's so weird. If Evan doesn't get his mom to help, Brett threatens that no one will come to his party. This chapter alone actually makes Brett seem a lot more sinister than he ever did in the musical. He seems like he's a dumb jock, but he's actually pretty calculating. It's kind of creepy. Because Evan is best pals with the popular kids, Evan actually wants to help Brett figure out a date for Kendra. While like the musical where Evan was the one who came up with the horror movie date idea, Movie Evan is also the one who comes up with the idea to not only go to a horror movie, but a rated R one. Unlike Musical Evan, Movie Evan has no problem breaking the rules. Back to the musical, this stars a sequence of songs that happen right after another. First are 2 songs combined, titled All Hail the Brain and Terminal Illness. The first section, All Hail the Brain, is where Evan thinks up different ways he could get the tickets. They're quite ridiculous and funny, and while he is trying to come up with a plan, all of his classmates are gossiping around him, excited about the movie date. Eventually, it hits Evan that he knows someone who can help him get the tickets and runs to find Archie, leading to the second section of the song, Terminal Illness. This is where Evan tells Archie his plan. Because Archie is a sick, crippled boy, he is the perfect candidate to convince Evan's mom to buy the tickets.
Stop the clock.
What the?
Now, yes, there are a lot of jokes in this song that upon first listen would make you flabbergasted. You don't hear these kinds of jokes anymore in today's society because people usually deem them as offensive and harmful. But I don't know, I find the jokes funny most of the time as it felt like you were laughing with them than at them, if that makes sense. And if you think these jokes are awful in the musical, then you should probably skip the book because they also exist, and there are a lot more of them. But let's be real here, you can't disagree with the fact that if a sick kid like Archie came up to you to ask for some movie tickets, you would say yes. That's what makes it funny. And what do you know? Evan's mom says yes and buys the tickets. This leads into the final section reprising All Hail the Brain, where everyone celebrates Evan for getting the movie tickets. In the movie, we get a brand new song, The Bloodmaster, replacing All Hail the Brain / Terminal Illness. During the song, Evan comes up with a couple of ideas to sneak everyone into the movie theater, while Lucy tries to find holes in Evan's plans. Each time Evan comes up with a new idea, Lucy follows up with reasons why each idea can't work. Unfortunately for Lucy, Evan isn't deterred by her interference, and thanks to the other classmates wanting to help, a plan is quickly formed. Super excited, everyone is on board for the movie date, except of course, Lucy. By the way, I don't understand why it seems like the entire grade was invited to Brett and Kendra's date. Isn't that weird? I mean, in the musical, we have the entire cast at the movie date, but that's only 13 kids who are all close to one another on some level. And when we get to the book, you'll see it was supposed to be just Evan, Brett, Kendra, Lucy, Eddie, and Fudge. Patrice and Archie invite themselves, but I'll get to that later. But here, I guess the entire grade is just invited to this date. After the song, Lucy pulls Evan in for a little chat. She tells Evan that he has to stop Brett and Kendra from kissing. Evan is bewildered by this, but Lucy goes further and threatens that if Evan doesn't stop them, she'll make sure no one comes to his party. And that doesn't make sense. It has been repeatedly shown that Lucy is not that likable in school, and the only reason why she is even popular in the first place is because of Brett and Kendra. If Brett was the one threatening Evan like in the musical or book, yes, that would feel threatening because Brett is the top dog, and we know he can and will follow up with these threats. But with Lucy doing it, it doesn't feel as scary at all. We know she doesn't have the power to follow through. Well, maybe it's just us, the viewers, who know she has no power because Evan for some reason takes her threat seriously. You could say it's because Evan cares a lot about his party, but I don't know. It has been shown Evan is now good friends with Brett. Why can't he just tell Brett what Lucy told him? Anyways, later on, Evan is pondering about what to do with this new problem he's found himself in. He and Archie are hanging out when Kendra runs by. Kendra says hello, and Archie is in shock for some reason. I have no idea what this response even is. He can't seem to function all of a sudden. This causes Evan to remember Archie has a crush on the cheerleader and gives him an idea. Evan invites Archie to the movie date, offering him to sit next to Kendra, but in return, asks him to make sure Brett and Kendra don't kiss. How could Archie possibly do that? I have no idea. Archie, loving the idea, agrees, and Evan is relieved, feeling like he finally solved everyone's problems. In chapter 9, Evan is all alone trying to figure out a way to get movie tickets. But he finds out Archie eavesdropped on his conversation with Brett. Archie is actually super enthusiastic about the movie date idea. He is actually the one who comes up with the idea to bring himself to the movies to stop Kendra and Brett from dating. Even though in this version of the story, Evan never invited him. Ignoring Archie, Evan tries to think up a plan to get his mom to buy the tickets. This is where we learn this apparent magical power that all Jews have called the power of guilt. I'm not kidding. So for the rest of the chapter, Evan is using various forms of guilt tripping to get his mom to buy the tickets, and by the end of the chapter, he succeeds. This chapter was honestly very disturbing, as it really shows how far a kid will go to get what they want, and the parent will be none the wiser. It's in chapter 10 where we finally get to the movie theater. Evan's mom pays for the tickets and tells the kids to have fun and leaves. I just realized that in the musical, Evan's mom gets guilt tripped by Archie to buy them tickets. Here in the book, Evan personally guilt trips his own mother to take them to the movies to buy them tickets. In the movie, there is no problem getting tickets. It takes musical Evan multiple tries to think up a plan to get everyone to the movie theater, but in the movie, it takes Evan one try to come up with an idea, and he doesn't need his mom's help. I guess, it is set in 2022, so technology is a lot easier for kids to get movie tickets nowadays, but come on, you actually have the mom in the movie, and yet the one time she can actually be useful for the story, you don't use her. Now, you might be wondering where Patrice fits into all this craziness, as I haven't mentioned her yet, so let's get to her side of the plot. In the musical, before the big number getting ready, Evan has a conversation with Patrice. He invites her to go to the movies with him, and Patrice, misunderstanding the question, thinks Evan is asking her out on a date. Flustered, she says yes, making them both very excited, albeit for different reasons. Back to chapter 9, Patrice actually walks in on Evan and Archie's conversation about the movie idea. Learning about Brett and Kendra's date, Patrice is intrigued and wants to go as well, but Evan, being honestly petty, tells her she can't come because the movie is rated R. What? Evan, you hypocrite. Not backing down, Patrice promises she'll be there and storms away. But it's even more different in the movie. Patrice finds out about the movie date from Archie, and while Archie is super excited about the event, Patrice automatically becomes very suspicious and believes Evan is using Archie for his own gain. Back to the main plot. After his conversation with Patrice, Evan realizes he didn't think through the fact that Brett and Archie are dating the same girl in the same movie theater on the same night. He rushes to remind Archie that he cannot kiss Kendra, and Archie agrees. This is when Getting Ready starts, where we see multiple different perspectives getting ready for the big night. First, we start with Archie and Evan, where Archie is excited to meet Kendra, and Evan is optimistic things will go well, and hoping Patrice will understand his plan. Then the song shifts to Brett, Eddie, and Malcolm, all singing about the exciting moment when Brett will finally get the tongue. Yay.
Here comes the tongue. Here comes.
They're so hyped about it. The song shifts again to Lucy and Kendra, where Lucy is lecturing Kendra about how to be a quote-unquote good girl, and not a... You know what? I'll get back to this later. Let's just say that I was very surprised with the direction this song went. It's honestly sad because all Kendra wants is to have a good time, date Brett, and kiss him. But Lucy is just throwing all of these awful comments towards Kendra, making her doubt about the whole thing when it's supposed to be a fun date. Not that I think Brett is a great option for Kendra.
Here comes the tongue. Here comes.
But you get the point that if a girl wants to have fun and go on a date, she should just have fun and go on a date, not having to worry about how she responds to this and that, and worrying about whether she's leading someone on or acting too... You know what? I'm going to stop there. After their section, Patrice comes in to sing with Lucy and Kendra for a quick line, I've got to be ready for him, building up to the final chorus of Getting Ready, where all the major characters come in dressed up and ready for the night, ending the song at the movie theater. Now, Getting Ready in the movie version is not the same number as in the musical. Almost 3 minutes of the original song was taken out, with only Evan and Archie singing the majority of it, and the rest of the cast coming in at the end of the song, singing the last chorus. Archie's part is mostly the same, with him singing about how excited he is for the date. Why do you have a picture of her? That's really weird, honestly. It's not like you guys are friends. Then we have Evan's part, where the beginning of his solo is technically the same, but then the second half of it is changed into a rap section of sorts. He talks about how he is optimistic his plan will work, and because his plan will work, everyone will come to his party. After his rap, this transitions to the movie theater, where everyone is already there, excited for the date, except Lucy. Poor Lucy. And then they all sing the last chorus of Getting Ready. Now, there is an extended version of this song where we actually get singing sections from Brett, Eddie, Malcolm, Lucy, Kendra, and Patrice, but none of them are anything like the musical. The music and lyrics are completely revamped for this movie. Instead of singing about the tongue, Brett, Eddie, and Malcolm sing about how magical the night is going to be. I'm sorry, this is better than singing about tongue, but it's just kind of stupid. The music is similar to the original with a heavy emphasis on reggae, but just everything else is so different. Lucy and Kendra's scene is completely redone both in terms of music and lyrics. Kendra sings the majority of the section, singing about how she is a rebel. I'm sorry, what? Sweet little Kendra is now a rebel, everybody. She's going to a movie, not telling her mom, and breaking rules. Such a rebel. Even Lucy is baffled. Anyways, she sings about how excited she is to kiss Brett, and Lucy just goes along with it. The song also goes heavy on rock and guitar, more than any other song in this movie. I mean, I am relieved I don't have to hear preteens giving each other the slut talk, but golly, this is bad in its own way. It's just so cringy. However, Patrice's section might be the worst, and I know. How, KM? How can it possibly be worse? Well, to start, the music gets super, I don't know, ominous? Like, the drums and the keys give this whole scene a very ominous, dark vibe that just feels so out of place. We can see she is marching up to Evan's house as she sings about doing the right thing. And I mean, yes, kids should not break the rules and go see rated R movies. But again, because of how they've written this character, it comes across as Patrice being annoying, self-righteous, and honestly, evil? I think it's the music making her seem evil. Honestly, it's good that this particular section of the song was cut out. At least you can laugh at Brett and Kendra's sections in the song. Here, you just get super annoyed. Back to chapter 10, the kids go to the theater and find it completely empty. I guess it wasn't popular. But before Evan can get comfortable, Patrice and Archie show up. Apparently, Patrice has a cousin who works at the concession stand who let them in from the emergency door. Evan is not pleased by this, especially because Archie is there. So he tries to make Archie stay put until he can give Archie a seat next to Kendra, but Archie ignores him, making a big scene and causing Evan to give up his own seat. Okay, are we caught up now? Everyone good? If you didn't get some of that, here is a summary on the screen. So, let's finally talk about the movie theater date. Right after getting ready, another song is already starting titled Any Minute. Finally, we are at the midpoint of the timeline. The song is a duet between Brett and Kendra singing about what they're seeing on the movie screen. And it's pretty gruesome, not gonna lie. While the movie is playing out, we learn about some insecurities both Brett and Kendra are thinking, but never voiced out loud. Brett is frustrated with himself, feeling too scared to take action, while Kendra is worried she is too fat and wondering if Lucy was right all along. Patrice also has a little moment wondering why Evan invited her to the movies when he's ignoring her. Meanwhile, Evan is trying to make sure Archie doesn't ruin the date. At the end of the song, Archie cuts in, psyching himself up, and goes for the kiss at the same time as Brett gains the courage. This leads to chaos. Everyone tries to stop the kiss from happening, but we end up with two boys kissing, Kendra pushed back in shock, and everyone screaming and staring at the spectacle. Breaking apart, Brett is disgusted and demands to know what is going on. The blame falls on Evan, and Brett plans to beat him up, but Kendra tries to stop him. She ends up punching him, and full of embarrassment and anger, she storms off. Lucy, seeing her chance, kisses Brett. Brett, startled and confused and I guess okay with it, lets Lucy take him out of the theater while everyone else gossips about the scene that just took place. Outside the theater, Evan complains to Patrice about how everything is ruined, but Patrice has had enough. A short 40-second song titled Good Enough comes on, where Patrice confronts Evan about his actions. She forces him to look at what he's done, including ruining their friendship just to fit in with the popular kids. It doesn't matter whether he meant to or not. He hurt people's feelings and caused drama and chaos. Patrice leaves once the song ends, and Evan becomes more determined than ever to make things right with Patrice and with Brett. That's when Archie comes in, and Evan, who also blames Archie for this mess, tells Archie he is going to help him make things right. Back to the book. When Archie sits next to Kendra, Kendra actually tries to talk to him, but suddenly the boy can't seem to speak.
There I was saying.
Archie ends up making a fool of himself, which causes Brett, Eddie, and Fudge to start making fun of him. Archie, embarrassed and upset, leaves, and Patrice follows him, blaming Evan for the mess. Evan tries to stick up for Archie, but the popular kids ignore him, continuing to watch the movie, which is very gruesome, by the way. Golly, did you have to go into detail, Jason? However, when Brett and Kendra go in for the kiss, the movie stops, and the lights come on. Patrice runs in and warns them that Archie told the manager, and the manager is going to call their parents. Everyone is mad, but Archie comes in and shifts the blame to Evan, making up a lie that Evan was the one who invited him. Brett and the boys beat up Evan and then run off. Archie and Patrice stay, yelling at Evan for the mess he made, then leave him as well. No more Bars Mitzvah. The movie version is incredibly tame compared to the musical and book. Instead of singing Any Minute, the kids enjoyed the movie, but right before Brett and Kendra can go for the kiss, they are interrupted by the manager and what seems like all the kids' parents. Golly, everyone's acting like a murder happened in here. For some reason, everyone comes to the strange conclusion that getting caught was Evan's fault just because of a comment Archie made, which, by the way, Archie never did anything about the kiss, so again, Archie's purpose being here is utterly pointless. He literally just sits there watching them. Also, as Jessica drags Evan out of the movie room, Patrice is literally standing right there, crossed arms and all, looking like a disappointed mother. And no one seems to make the connection it was actually Patrice who told on them. Everyone makes the decision that no one is coming to Evan's party after that, and the movie theater is full of disappointed parents and sulking preteens. Patrice tries to make sure Archie is alright, but Archie accuses her of being controlling and rolls away. Evan and Patrice have a fight where Evan tries to understand why Patrice did what she did, and Patrice accuses Evan of using people for his own gain. Which, again, that's not what happened. In the book, yes. And the musical, kind of. And the movie, no. Evan is never manipulating or forcing anyone to do things for him. Everyone was a willing participant in Evan's plan, and this includes Archie. For everyone to jump the gun and blame Evan for everything is really weird. Meanwhile, Kendra is in trouble with her mom, and while her mom is scolding her, Lucy takes this time to talk to Brett and
ready for an opportunity like this.
It's not the best move on Lucy's part, especially since Brett is obviously confused and unwilling. And for some reason, this kiss symbolizes they are now together, dating. So now we are done with the movie scene. Hallelujah. If none of that made sense, here's a summary. Let's finally move on. Now, because each story had their own version of the events that took place at the movie date, the fallout after is very different. Each story goes in completely opposite directions, so don't expect a whole lot of similarities from this point forward. After the disaster that was the movie date, Brett's gang, Eddie, Malcolm, Simon, and Richie, worry about Brett and his relationship with Lucy. Since the two have been dating, the boys never get to see Brett, evident by Lucy's controlling nature.
Now, what are our plans for this weekend?
Well, I thought I'd just hang with my boys.
Oh, that's cute! But you thought wrong. No more trolling with the Smurfs. Your weekends are now our weekends.
When Brett can't come to another one of their get-togethers, the boys decide that enough is enough. They need to find a way to get the two to break up. This is when the song Bad Bad News starts, where the boys come up with rather ridiculous ideas to get their leader back. And during the song, we also get pieces of dialogue between Brett and Lucy, showing how dysfunctional their relationship is.
Lucy, you are driving me crazy.
See, now that was sweet. And I like sweet. Sweet makes me sweet, got it?
No.
Jokes aside, it's honestly alarming how Lucy views herself and her beliefs on what a proper relationship looks like. It's really sad. The song is over the top. It's so goofy and cringy, but at the same time hilarious in a preteen boys wanting their leader back and the girl gone kind of way. However, the lyrics are quite something. Honestly, even though the overall song is ridiculous and funny, when you actually listen to the lyrics, it makes you raise your eyebrows, take a step back. I don't know. Why the heck are these preteens talking like this? They are incredibly mean, but phrased as jokes in expense of Lucy. I mean, I get it guys, she's not the nicest girl, but there is no need to go this far. In the movie, Bad Bad News has the same concept where Brett's friends, Eddie, Malcolm, and I just realized this. So Simon and Richie's names got changed to Carlos and KC for some reason. Why did I just realize this? Do they say their names in the movie, or is this just something you figure out when you look up the movie and the cast members and all? Again, with the unnecessary changes. Anyways, similar to the musical, Brett's friends, Eddie, Malcolm, Carlos, and KC, notice how Lucy is taking up all of Brett's time and wishing Brett would be their friend and leader again. Instead of the musical where the lyrics are more focused on Lucy and how mean of a girl she is, the lyrics in the movie are changed to focus on how worried the group is for their friend. Because movie Brett is also shown to be more miserable and regretful, whereas musical Brett is seen to be more frustrated than anything else. The singing is fine, but you can tell these boys are not Broadway level singers, and the lines are not distributed fairly. In the musical, each boy gets their time to show off their singing and comedic timing, but in the movie, most of the lines are given to Eddie, and the rest of the boys feel more like background singers. Overall, the musical number got shortened, the dialogue scenes were neither changed or cut out, and the lyrics were changed to focus on Brett and his mental state
over Lucy and her controlling nature, which is honestly for the best in my opinion because golly, some of those lines in the musical are awful. We are talking about a child here. And again, because the book is from Evan's POV, we don't see any of these perspectives from Brett, Lucy, Patrice, Archie, and Brett's friends. So scenes like bad news cannot happen. Instead of seeing the aftermath of the movie date, chapter 11 and 12 gives us entirely new scenes that are not in the musical or movie. In chapter 11, we find Evan at another Hebrew lesson with Rabbi Weiner. Evan is having a pretty difficult time focusing as he can't stop thinking about the disastrous movie date. The rabbi quickly figures out that Evan's mind is elsewhere, and for the rest of the chapter, we actually get a pretty deep conversation about what growing up truly means. I'll touch more on this later, but even though I haven't mentioned it, throughout the book, every time Evan has a lesson with Rabbi Weiner, the question of what does it mean to be a man pops up. Usually Evan ignores these lessons, but now at his low point, Evan is beginning to realize he needs to change. When he gets home, Evan's mom informs him his dad is on the phone wanting to talk to him. Again, even though I haven't mentioned it, Evan's dad has been trying to get a hold of Evan for the last several chapters, and Evan has been ignoring his calls. But now, he just really wants his dad. He starts crying and yelling at his father for everything that's happened, and props to Evan's dad, he doesn't say anything, just allows Evan to get everything off his chest. After Evan is done, his dad actually apologizes, saying he is sorry, and tells Evan how much he loves him. This is when he invites Evan over to New York the following weekend to hang out. Elated, Evan immediately says yes, feeling lighter and happier than he has felt in a long time. This leads into chapter 12, with Evan flying out to New York. The weekend starts out great. Evan loves hanging out with his dad, and Angela is nowhere to be seen. However, when Evan goes to one of his friends' bar mitzvahs, things go downhill. Remember those two friends that I mentioned way in the beginning of this video? Well, they're back. And it's obvious things have changed. Naturally, because Evan moved away, his friends don't really know how to act around him anymore. In previous chapters, Evan has tried to keep in touch, but they rarely responded back, making things awkward. He doesn't go to the same school as his former friends do anymore. So conversations surrounding homework, crushes, parties, etc. makes him feel alone and clueless. And to make it all worse, Evan catches his best friend Bill kissing his crush, Nina. Now, I haven't mentioned this whole side crush thing book Evan has, but man, he has a serious crush on this girl. Serious crush. Witnessing this and feeling betrayed, Evan leaves the party. But when he gets home, Evan catches his dad hanging out with Angela. Or, just hanging out. They hint at something, but I'm not gonna go there right now. Overwhelmed and upset, Evan is more than ready to leave, concluding New York is not his home anymore. So in my makeshift timeline here, for the musical and book, this is where we would approach the end of Act 2, hitting the second plot point. But in the movie, there really isn't a second plot point. More like we head straight into the climax of the story. You know what, I'll get to that in a bit. But in terms of story arcs, the musical and book are similar. So I'm going to focus on the musical and book for a bit, and then I'll talk about how and why the movie is so different. Let's start with the book, as the book has a lot more going on compared to the musical. In chapter 13, once Evan comes to the realization that he needs to make things right, he flies home and goes to Archie's house to apologize. After a rather immature conversation, golly, Archie, you are quite something. Archie talks about what happened while Evan was away. Brett and Kendra haven't been talking, and Lucy is the reason why. She makes Brett think that Kendra thinks he is a dumb jock, while she makes Kendra think Brett doesn't like her anymore. The past week has been full of tears and anger between the two, and it all comes to a head during the Friday night football game. Brett's team was losing, and Kendra was too upset to focus on cheerleading. This is where Archie's story takes a weird turn, and even Evan says to take Archie's story with a grain of salt, But apparently, during the second half of the game, Brett suddenly starts yelling out, "Tongue."
and one by one the crowd joins in chanting tongue. And then suddenly everyone is chanting tongue, tongue, tongue. I can't believe I'm saying this. And Brett, reveling in the attention, wins the game. Everyone cheers, and suddenly out of nowhere, Lucy runs out onto the field and kisses Brett in front of everyone, including Kendra. Quite the story, huh? Oh, this is so dumb.
Why me? Why me?
Whether that was true or not, Archie for some reason concludes his story by telling Evan he's the one that needs to help Brett break up with Lucy and get Brett and Kendra back together. How Archie came to that conclusion, I have no idea. Naturally, Evan is baffled by this since Archie was the one who wanted Kendra for himself, but Archie just says he has a plan, so Evan doesn't need to worry about that. Evan just has to figure out how to get the two back together, because apparently that is Evan's problem now. At this moment, Patrice is tutoring Brett, so Archie believes Evan can solve both of his problems. So Evan runs off to find Patrice and Brett. As you can imagine, this is handled way differently in the musical. Evan doesn't have a rabbi to talk to, or a dad flying him out to New York. Instead, he is stuck at school trying to figure out a way to fix everything. After the song, Bad Bad News, Evan overhears the boy's dilemma and decides he needs to help them out without really thinking it through. Again, this kid cannot learn a lesson. Archie, knowing this is a bad idea, texts Patrice telling her the situation and asking for help. Patrice doesn't want anything to do with Evan, but because she is way too nice for her own good, she runs off to find him. After meeting up with Brett, it finally dawns on Evan he doesn't really have an idea on how to get Brett and Kendra back together. But before things can escalate, Patrice intervenes, telling Brett to just talk to Kendra. Wow, what an amazing revelation. This starts the song Tell Her, where Patrice and Evan each give advice on how to make things right with Kendra. But really, the song goes deeper than that. Though they are giving advice to Brett, they are also reconciling with each other. Evan admits he made a mistake and says sorry, and Patrice forgives Evan and admits she was jealous of him. That part does feel a bit weird for Patrice, since we never really get to see her being jealous of Evan. Honestly, she is more understanding than anything else. But overall, it is still a sweet, soft song.
Meanwhile,
Brett is trying to write all of this advice down on a paper, and then on both of his arms. At least he's trying to make things right. The song ends with Evan and Patrice becoming friends again, and Brett pumped and ready to find Kendra. Chapter 14 is basically the Teller song, copy and pasted in book form, just presented in a different location and setup. Evan finds Patrice tutoring Brett on math, and he tries to make small talk with them, which doesn't work very well. When Brett is about to leave, Evan blurts out he needs advice about apologizing to a girl. Brett, intrigued, is actually the one who gets Evan to apologize to Patrice in a roundabout way. What would you say if I was the one who made the stupid mistake and lost my girl, and I was coming to you for advice? He asked. Seeing where this is going, Patrice becomes interested in the conversation, and after that, the dialogue more or less is similar to the Tell Her song. The two end up apologizing to one another, and Brett starts crying and then runs off saying he needs to find someone. Alone, the two laugh it off, and Patrice asks if she can finally come to his stupid bar mitzvah. So the end result is the same, however, the feeling of it is different here than in the musical. I touched on this in my reading vlog, but because of all the hurt that happens between the two, this chapter left a bad taste in my mouth.
I mean, it's still nice, right? Like, these two are apologizing to one another, but I don't know, it doesn't feel as sweet as the musical did. I don't know if it's because there's a lot more drama between them in this book, and it doesn't feel as sweet and genuine when they talk to one another, apologize to one another, because Evan was absolutely awful to her throughout the book. And Patrice wasn't all that nice either.
Back to the musical, the sweet moment between Evan and Patrice is interrupted by Molly, who calls out for Brett. She lets him know Lucy and Kendra are fighting in the girls' bathroom, and Brett tells Evan that if his advice works, then everyone will be at his party. Scene changes to the girls' bathroom, where the girls are really going at it with each other.
Stole him! I won, you lost, I'm hotter! Great, you sluts up! Virgin sluts got my ass! Getting loud!
Okay,
Brett stops the fight and tells Lucy their relationship is over. Lucy storms off, and Brett tries to parrot what Evan and Patrice told him. However, this leads to an incredibly funny scene where Brett forgets what to say and tries to read the instructions from his arm.
Tell me I thought about what happened. Tell me I wish I had I don't know.
Honestly, this was a genuinely really funny scene. But despite his terrible handwriting, Kendra quickly forgives him and they get back together. The end.
You bet!
Or is it? In the book, we don't get to see Brett's confession to Kendra, but we do see the aftermath of it in chapter 15. Brett and Kendra come to Evan's house to thank him and to let him know they are telling everyone to come to Evan's party by Kendra's insistence to thank him. Evan is thrilled everything is working out, and riding on that high, before Brett and Kendra leave, Evan takes Kendra aside and asks her for a big favor. Since Evan helped Kendra get back together with Brett, could Kendra maybe go on a date with Archie? Kendra is reasonably hesitant about this. I mean, seriously, Evan, is this really the time to ask this kind of a favor after she just got together with her own crush? But Kendra, being the nice girl she is, says she is willing to do it. It seems like everything is going to be okay again. And then the opening line for chapter 16 says this. So, we'll get to that. This is where we would get to what I consider the plot twist, quote unquote, of the story in both the musical and slightly in the book for reasons I will get to later. This plot twist is what leads to the climax of the story, because even though Brett and Kendra are now together, Lucy will not back down. Wanting revenge, Lucy spreads a rumor that Evan and Kendra got together behind Brett's back, which I don't know how that would work. The two are rarely ever around each other, so it's not very believable, but I guess that doesn't stop a bunch of drama-seeking preteens. This is when the song It Can't Be True happens. Lucy calls up Molly, lying to her that Charlotte saw Evan and Kendra together at the mall. And even though Lucy asked Molly not to tell anyone, of course, Molly immediately calls Cassie. This is when the rumor spreads, and it quickly gets out of control, as rumors do, and soon the entire middle school knows about this rumor. When Patrice and Archie find out, they rush off to warn Evan. It eventually gets to Eddie and Malcolm, who then tell Brett about what they heard. Brett is absolutely livid and immediately demands to find Evan. Honestly, it's funny that these kids keep singing "Could You Imagine What Brett Would Do If He Heard That Kind of Rumor?" and yet they are all willingly spreading said rumor. They just like the drama.
He claims people talk about other people too much.
Where do you ever get an idea like that?
Beats me.
There are some short dialogue moments within the musical number, one in particular between Lucy and Kendra. Lucy apologizes to Kendra about what happened, saying Kendra won fair and square. After they make up, Lucy tells Kendra she should thank Evan for getting Brett and her back together. This leads to Lucy personally arranging a meetup between Evan and Kendra out of the goodness of her heart.
Oh, please! You make it so easy! Oh, please! You make it so easy!
Yeah, right. Because Lucy knew where the two were meeting, she is the one who leads Brett right to them. And here we are at the climax of the 13th story in what I would title The Fight. Evan is already at their meetup spot when Kendra shows up. She thanks him, and the two have an incredibly awkward hug.
This isn't awkward at all.
That's when Brett, Lucy, and everyone else shows up, and Brett immediately accuses them of betraying him. This is when Evan finally realizes how much of a jerk Brett is to not only him, but to everyone else. He stands up to Brett, calls him out on his behavior, and announces Brett is uninvited to his party. Ego bruised, Brett punches him, calls Kendra names, declares Lucy and him are back together, and storms off. Everyone else follows him, leaving Evan, Patrice, Archie, and Kendra alone. Archie tries to console Kendra, and though she is grateful, she panics and runs after Brett. This makes Archie realize Kendra is not worth it, as she is still wanting Brett even after everything he did to her. Suddenly, despite Brett and Kendra getting back together, and Evan being the reason for this happening, no one seems to want anything to do with him. Only Kendra and Lucy, who is suddenly being super nice to him for some reason, seem to want to talk to him. With Lucy's insistence, Evan and Kendra decide to meet up after school to set up the date with Archie. When they do meet at the cafeteria, the two hear some shouting before Brett and 200 kids burst into the room. With no warning, Brett starts beating up Evan. Kendra tries to stop Brett, but the angry boy won't listen. He accuses Evan taking his girl, and when Evan tries to explain they were just talking, Brett punches Evan one more time, then storms off, bringing the 200 kids along with him. The room becomes quiet, with Evan beat up on the floor and Kendra in shock. This is when Archie comes out of nowhere and tries to get Kendra to listen to a song he made for her. But still in deep shock, she leaves without saying anything. Honestly, poor girl. Archie, for some reason not having the emotional awareness to figure out what's going on, starts blaming Evan again for everything going wrong, ignoring the fact that Evan is on the floor, beat up and bleeding. Eventually Archie leaves, and once he's gone, Ruth and Patrice find Evan and help him off the floor. And again, just in case y'all fell asleep, we only see things from Evan's perspective, so we don't get to see Lucy plotting, gossiping, etc. So Evan can only speculate that Lucy was the one who caused the fight to happen, even though we don't see it. This is where we start the following action section of the timeline for both the musical and book. After the fight, Evan feels defeated once again. Brett and Kendra broke up, Brett is mad at him, and no one is coming to his party. Thinking there is no point anymore, Evan decides he is going to cancel his bar mitzvah. He realizes he was driving himself crazy just to have something he never really wanted. A party full of kids who never really cared about him in the first place. He just got swept up in all the drama. But Patrice and Archie disagree. They will come to his party. They commend him for standing up against Brett and trying to make things right. Who cares who comes and who doesn't? If That's What It Is starts to play, where Archie and Patrice encourage Evan to look at the bigger picture. They will support whatever decision Evan makes, but no matter what, Evan needs to move forward. He needs to look past his hurt and mistakes and focus on what's already in front of him. Thanks to his friend's encouragement, Evan believes he understands what it means to be a man now, even if he doesn't have all the answers yet. This is when the reprise of Becoming a Man comes in. Instead of confusion and worry, Evan is now sure in his beliefs. A man takes the world as he sees it, not what he wishes it could be. A man makes things right whenever he is wrong. A man takes chances, even when it's hard. Understanding these things, Evan decides he will have the party, even if it's just him and his two friends. Oh, and also, Evan and Patrice kiss in the middle of the song, so there's that. This revelation Evan has in the musical is slightly different in the book. We find Evan's mom raging against preteens in chapter 17, like she is crazy mad at what these kids have done to her son. And while her anger is justified, and it is nice she apologizes to Evan for putting him in the situation, it does go a bit too far. She even declares they aren't having the bar mitzvah anymore, which is what Evan wanted all along, but he stops her. Despite everything that's happened, Evan decides he wants to continue the bar mitzvah whether anyone shows up or not. This is incredibly mature of Evan to do. I mean, throughout the entire book, Evan has been against the idea of having a bar mitzvah. They've moved, he has no friends, his parents split up, he isn't religious either. And even when he comes around to the idea of having a party, Evan went through so much trouble just to have one. And all that trouble was for naught. The easy thing to do would be to let his mom cancel the event and move on with his life. But Evan decides not to do that. He will have the bar mitzvah because for him, that's the right thing to do. For him, it's a way to move forward. It's truly a satisfying moment in the book that I didn't really get in the musical. Sure, the song, If That's What It Is a fantastic song, my favorite number in the entire musical, in fact. But to watch Evan struggle so much in the book, from going to I don't want a bar mitzvah to we are having one, is a great character arc. It really shows Evan's growth. because Evan made a decision that he never thought he would have made in the beginning of this story. Really, really cool. The school week continues on as usual, and thankfully nobody has been threatening, mocking, or even talking to Evan. It's like he doesn't exist anymore. But that is just fine with Evan. Instead, he hangs out with Patrice and focuses on getting ready for his bar mitzvah. Now, let's finally talk about how the movie handled this portion of the timeline, and let me just say right off the bat, it's something else. For starters, after the song Bad Bad News, we get a brand new scene and song between Evan and Jessica. On social media, people are shaming Evan for betraying them.
Disloyal to the core.
Jessica tries to console Evan, but Evan doesn't really want to hear it. This is when the new song, It Would Be Funny, starts. Now, I haven't really talked about the mom in this movie for one major reason. Her character, her story arc, literally leaves no impact on the movie. At all. Throughout the movie, there is this whole side plot where Jessica is shown to be struggling with a divorce. And I want to make this clear. I think it's fine to show single parents dealing with the aftermath of issues like divorces, but golly, this is not the way to do it. The book handled this idea way better. Through Evan's POV, we witness Evan's mom struggling. Whenever Evan's mom is around, we see her cry, scream, struggle over this new life that she has to live now. Through Evan, we hear snippets of her anger over her failed marriage and her worries for the future. But those moments never took away from Evan's story. Why? Because Evan is there to witness those moments, and those moments affect him too, which in turn affect the readers. Overall, this impacts the story in a positive way. It gives rather than takes. This is completely different in the movie. Whenever we see Jessica, Evan is usually never there, and if he is there, it never seems like he is affected by what his mother is going through. Most of her scenes feel like they take away precious screen time from other more important characters like Patrice or Lucy or Archie. One minute we are watching these kids singing and dancing, then the next minute we are watching a mom spacing out and annoying her own mother. How does this side story impact our main character? How does her struggles address the overall themes for this movie? The answer is, it doesn't. This movie is supposed to be about children becoming teenagers. It is not a movie about divorced mothers. Also, the song is completely forgettable. I actually forgot about this song until I was looking back through my outline, and I was like, oh yeah, that song. I get it's supposed to be a sentimental moment, a sweet mother and son scene, but it feels like wasted time. I guess maybe the song is meant to wake Evan up and make him realize that his actions have consequences. There is this one line, when you face what you're most afraid of, like, what if you threw a party and nobody came? But we didn't need this song in the original musical to make Evan realize that. So why do we need one here? Maybe it would have landed better if Evan actually made mistakes in the story, or maybe it was for the mom to realize she needs to accept her new life to move forward. The lyrics show she is trying to relate to Evan with her own experiences, so maybe this scene, this song is supposed to be the climax for Jessica's character arc. I don't know. All I know is the entire mother side plot thing is forgettable. It's pointless. It adds no value to the overall story. Man, that's kind of harsh. Why did I say it like that?
That was mean.
After the forgettable number, we find ourselves at the school cafeteria where things are pretty somber. Evan is sitting alone, Kendra is sitting alone, Brett is absolutely miserable, Brett's friends are awkward, and Lucy is trying to pretend everything is fine. Evan's phone rings, and seeing it's his dad, he decides to answer. Like Book Evan, Movie Evan has also been ignoring his dad's phone calls throughout the story, and now, at his low point, he answers. They have a small heart-to-heart moment where Evan's dad encourages Evan to do the right thing. Based on his acting, it looks like Evan's dad actually regrets what he did to his family and is making sure Evan does what he didn't do, make the right decision. This phone call kind of becomes the catalyst, I guess, to give Evan the courage to talk to Brett, because then he starts listening to Brett and his friend's conversation. This starts the song Tell Her, and it's, very different. Instead of musical Evan coming into this moment wanting to be a hero but not thinking things through, movie Evan just wants to make things right for Brett and Kendra. That's all. He's not thinking about his party or wanting to be a hero. He just wants everyone to be happy again. Secondly, Evan is not only talking to Brett, but also the entire middle school, it seems.
She's got some kind of like hypnotic hold on you and we have no idea what it is.
Why is everybody staring at them? It's like his drama is everybody's drama.
Everyone is just eavesdropping on this conversation. And as far as similarities go, Evan starts off the song with his lyrics being mostly the same. Then Patrice sings her part next with her lyrics also being mostly the same, except for one particular line. And I think this one line reveals who Patrice truly is as a character in this version, and it's not good. In the musical, Patrice sings, "Say you forgive her, say you were jealous." In the movie though, the lyrics are changed to, "Tell her you're sorry, tell her you miss her." Why? Also, the line "say you were jealous" would have worked so much better for this version of Patrice than the original. So why change this only line that could have put Patrice in a better light? This movie is trying so hard to make Evan seem like a bad guy who made some terrible mistakes, but he didn't. He really didn't. He has done nothing to warrant such a response from Patrice. In fact, it's the other way around. Patrice has been the one who's been treating Evan so terribly throughout the film. I would even go so far as to say she's been borderline bullying him. So these lyrics would have redeemed her and at least would have given her a good character arc in the story. It would have put her in a better light for not just Evan, but for the viewers as well. Suddenly, everyone wants a moment to shine as each supporting character sings a line to encourage Brett to talk to Kendra. By the way, the girl is right there. I mean, she can hear you guys. You're not exactly being quiet. No, seriously, the singing and music gets so loud. Like, why?
The song suddenly really loud. Oh my gosh.
It's nothing like the quiet moment Evan and Patrice had with each other in the musical. So while they're singing, everyone follows Brett as he walks up to Kendra. And then we finally have a moment of peace where Brett sings to Kendra, saying he's sorry and wanting another chance. Even though I actually really like this little moment, it also made me realize that we wouldn't get the hilarious moment of Brett reading off his arm to say his apology.
Tell me, I wish I had I don't know.
Honestly, a lost opportunity, even though it wouldn't really make sense for this version of Brett, but still. But of course we can't have this nice quiet moment because then everyone cuts in on Brett's apology, essentially telling Brett what to say to Kendra, and it's so awkward. Like, this is supposed to be a private moment, and you have what seems like the entire grade watching all this go down.
All these kids are just watching this happen, circling around them.
Do you guys not know the meaning of privacy? It's so weird and strangely funny, but not the good kind of funny, like the cringy kind of funny. It truly ruins the moment. Kendra forgives Brett, the two kiss, and everyone starts celebrating. Overall, I think the writers completely forgot the whole point of why the story has this song. It's supposed to be a quiet moment between Evan and Patrice, who up to this point have experienced so much hurt. It's supposed to be a moment of forgiveness, but instead it's a song focused on Brett and Kendra and their whole dynamic, and on top of that, it's in front of everyone. The song in of itself in this movie feels loud and performative, lacking the sincerity that the musical had. At its surface, Tell Her is a simple song, but it's much deeper than that, and the creators forgot that deeper meaning, which ironically I think can explain the whole movie in general, but I'll talk about that later. After the kids are done celebrating, Lucy walks in and learns Brett and Kendra are now together. She is confused, and honestly, I would be too, because she was only gone for like 4 minutes and then she comes back and everyone is clapping and cheering and her friends are on top of a table kissing. Like, what happened? She gets humiliated in front of everyone as everyone laughs and leaves her behind. Ashamed, Lucy blames Evan for the situation and storms off. I actually felt bad for Lucy, which again, I don't think the writers intended that for her character. Like Evan, this movie is trying to make Lucy be the bad guy, when she also hasn't really done anything wrong in this story. Yes, she should not have kissed Brett. That was a big no-no. But people are forgetting that Brett and Kendra could have at any point confronted the situation and resolved this on their own. There has obviously been a lot of miscommunication going on, so why is Lucy the only one being blamed in this story? After she leaves, Evan and Patrice get a moment to talk. Once again, Evan asks Patrice to come to his party, but Patrice, she actually does admit that she put Evan in a tough position, but she is still hesitant to go to his party. At this point, Evan, you just need to let her go.
Only know you love her when you let her go.
She says she'll think about it and leaves. Now at this point in the timeline, this is when It Can't Be True would happen, but guess what? It doesn't, because Lucy is actually a nice girl in this story. Sure, maybe a bit rude and misunderstood, but ultimately she is a nice girl compared to her predecessors. Definitely a nice girl. And because there is no revenge, there is no fight scene. And because there is no fight scene, there is no revelation moment for the protagonist. And because there is no revelation moment for the protagonist, there's no If That's What It Is song. Basically, 3 very big, very important events are completely cut from the story, and we jump right into the Bar Mitzvah. This is why I feel like there really isn't a climax in this story. The writer skipped all these very important moments, jumping from Brett and Kendra getting together to the Bar Mitzvah. As a result, this movie feels so empty. While I've been making this video, I've been watching a lot of people's movie reviews on this story, and some think it's fine and cute, but it also seems like there's a general consensus that the movie is boring. And I think the number one reason why people think this movie is boring is because there is no climax. There is no big revelation moment for our main character. Even when I was making my timelines for this video, it was super hard to do the movie's timeline because the question I couldn't answer was, where is the climax? Is it the movie theater date? Is it the Tell Her song? Is it the phone call with Evan's dad? I genuinely couldn't figure it out. The purpose for a story's climax is that the protagonist faces their greatest challenge and makes a decision that brings about a revelation for the main character. But that didn't happen here. What did Evan learn? Nothing. And because there was no fights, no breakups, no gossip, everyone is coming to his party, including his dad and Rabbi. So Evan got what he wanted all along. What was the point of this whole movie? What are we as the audience, the viewers, supposed to learn from all this? We are finally at the end of the timeline. Hallelujah. Y'all, it's taken me 2 months to get to this point, so I am so happy. Now, each ending has a different conclusion because of all the choices that were made throughout each story. So the messages that each version leaves you with might give you distinctly different impressions. In the musical, no one but Patrice, Archie, and some of Evan's family members come to the Bar Mitzvah. We know this as Evan has a short monologue talking about how some of his family did come to support him, and his parents are also there holding hands. Aww. So the ceremony isn't completely empty as Evan feared. He sings the Torah before going right into the second to last musical number, A Little More Homework, which is basically his speech written into song form. The lyrics are incredibly sweet and heartfelt, showing that Evan is content with his life, but also understands that he still has a lot more growing up to do, and that that's okay. After his speech, Charlotte comes on stage and has a solo moment symbolizing the passing of time as the rest of the cast pops up one by one, singing along with her. Throughout the song, we learn about what has happened to each character after they turn 13. Some of it is sweet, others are heartbreaking, and then there are those that are very out of pocket. The overall song is a message of remembrance and hope, an acknowledgement that whether you are 13 or 30 or 60, we are all still growing and learning. It is an emotional, bittersweet song that really hit close to home for me. Anyone can relate to these lyrics, no matter where you're from or how old you are. And with that, Evan says his last line, concluding the end to this coming-of-age musical.
I live at 24 Plains Drive, Appleton, Indiana. I'm 13 years old, and I'm just getting started.
But wait, there's more. Brand New You starts to play, and it's definitely a song of its time. It's kind of like those ending celebration songs at the end of rom-coms or family-friendly animated movies where everyone starts singing and dancing as the credits roll in. That's the feeling you get from this song. And the band, who are also a bunch of teenagers, actually get to be on stage for this number. There are a lot of rock and roll moments with great singing, high notes, and riffs, and while the entire cast is jamming out, they wave goodbye to the audience. At the end of the day, there's honestly no reason to have this musical number, but it's fun, and ends 13 on a much happier note. The end of the movie, however, has a very different vibe. Because there were no fights or breakups, everyone, and I mean literally everyone in the cast, shows up for Evan's ceremony. Before the event starts, we have a lot of little scenes here and there to wrap things up. For example, Jessica and Evan's dad take a moment to talk, and the two have an amiable conversation where Jessica admits she is glad Evan's dad is there. Lucy shows up for the event also and gets a moment alone with Kendra where she apologizes, Kendra forgives her, and the two hug it out. Also, Evan tries one more time to get Patrice to come to his bar mitzvah, and what do you know? Miracles exist. She ends up coming at the last possible moment.
Wow.
After these scenes, the ceremony starts. Evan sings the Torah, then a little more homework begins. Like previous songs, this number is no different in the fact that it starts out similar to the original and then branches out into something different. Evan sings first, and his lyrics are the exact same, but after he is done, instead of Charlotte getting the big solo moment, Patrice sings instead. And because the rest of the characters are already there, no one needs to come in and sing along, so the blocking is quite strange. Whenever any of the characters are singing, they stand up, and then sit down, and then stand up, sit down. The musical number does show the passing of time. Like we see everyone getting along, going to class, Archie has found a new crush, Jessica is starting her writing career, etc. But we don't get the moment where each character comes up and talks about what they did when they turned 13. So the song gets cut down to about a minute as a result. In a way, I think that's a good thing as some of the songs from the original are a bit inappropriate, but it does take away that individuality from the supporting cast. And like musical Evan, movie Evan concludes the story with his last line. Overall, the song is supposed to showcase that all is right in the world. Everyone is happy and getting along. Everyone's a winner. How nice.
How nice for Lloyd. How nice for Eve. How nice for everybody.
Right after a little more homework, we jump to Brand New You, where they are literally doing the thing I described about the ending of the musical. It's a celebration song where you see the characters singing and dancing to the camera while the credits roll in. This does make sense as the setting is an after party for Evan. Everyone is there to celebrate and have some fun. They definitely updated the song to make it more modern than the original and also more dance focused, giving the overall vibe of a music video rather than a concert. Overall, the movie ends too clean, too neat. Again, all the future scenes show all is right in the world. Everyone is good, everyone's getting along, but that's not real life. And the entire point of 13 is showing that life isn't fair, that sometimes not everyone can get along. Sometimes you don't get what you want. What makes the ending of the original so sombering was this honesty, showcasing that life doesn't always work out the way you want it to. That's the whole point of songs like If That's What It Is and A Little More Homework. So taking that idea away takes away the foundation of what makes 13 13. I mean, what are we supposed to learn from this movie? What does Evan learn from this experience? My answer? Nothing. And because the answer is nothing, it makes the movie feel empty and hollow. And finally, the book. In the same chapter, chapter 17, Evan's bar mitzvah is here, and to his surprise, when he, Patrice, Evan's mom, and Aunt Pam drive up to the church, Evan finds his entire family there, including his dad. Apparently, Aunt Pam secretly invited everyone. Even his mom didn't know. And in the writing, it is clear she is very uncomfortable, but everyone acts like it's a happy reunion. No, seriously, his mom is visibly uncomfortable, especially with Evan's dad there. Like, does everyone not know that they went through a divorce and that he cheated on her? The rabbi starts off the event going through Jewish customs, then signals Evan to start his part of the ceremony. To his relief, Evan gets through the Torah with no issues, and then it's time for his speech. But before he can start, there's a loud knock at the door. Archie and his mom walk in. Well, Archie actually rolls in. It is implied Archie had some kind of surgery for his illness, and because of the surgery is now in a wheelchair. Patrice helps him get settled, and then Evan starts. Standing in front of everyone, Evan gets nostalgic, realizing how far he has come. And even though he never finished writing his speech, Evan knows what he needs to say. It's honestly an incredibly heartfelt speech, as Evan admits his flaws and acknowledges he still doesn't know what it means to be a man yet, but he is willing to grow up and try. As long as he has his loved ones by his side who are willing to help him navigate this new chapter, Evan knows he will be okay. With that, the ceremony is over. Then there is what I would consider a bonus chapter, or epilogue if you will, in chapter 18, as it's only about 3 pages long. It's been about a year since the events of 13, and life is pretty good for Evan. He and Patrice are now a couple, Brett, Eddie, and Malcolm have moved on and are checking out other cheerleaders, Lucy and Kendra are not friends anymore, and Kendra is still considered the most popular girl in school. The main focus on this chapter though is on a high school talent show. Kendra is performing, and at the end of her performance, she, to the shock of everyone, invites Archie onto the stage. He then performs a song he wrote, and Evan realizes that this is the very song Archie created for Kendra all those months ago. After he is done, Kendra kisses him. And that's it. That's the last line. Honestly, this ending ruined the story for me. And story-wise, I think it ruins the whole point of the overall plot. And the very last line is, but no matter what he tells you, there was no tongue. That's how you're gonna end your story? No, like really, is that how you're going to end your story? And the very last line has to involve tongue again? And honestly, I think it kind of diminishes Kendra's character. Some people might read this and think like, oh, Kendra's so sweet, she gave him a kiss, like that's all he wanted in life. To me, after all Kendra went through, I think it would have been better for her character arc to just not date anybody, not kiss anybody. I think that's much more powerful. I also think that would be powerful for Archie as well. That somehow Archie realizes that he doesn't need a girl. He doesn't need to get kissed. He doesn't need to have that kind of validation from somebody that doesn't know he exists. I just don't like that. And I think it takes away the entire point of the story. Based on my understanding with storytelling, your very last scene should end with a bang. It should tie in the whole story. And it did that at the end of chapter 17. So I kind of wish they just stopped it there. We are done. Almost. To wrap things up, I want to mention some additional major differences between the 3 versions that I neither didn't have a way of mentioning yet or just haven't covered at all. Even though they have been mentioned here and there, I didn't really go over the supporting characters of 13 and how their presence affects each medium. These supporting characters are Cassie, Molly, Charlotte, Eddie, Malcolm, or Fudge, and Simon and Richie, or Carlos and KC, depending on which story you are looking at. In the musical, they have a huge presence on stage as they represent the school body. But what's great is the creators don't stop there. They actually spend time making sure each character has something distinct about them that the audience can remember them by, whether that is their unique singing ability, comedic humor, the clothes they wear, etc. By the end of the show, you know each of these characters even if they didn't say a whole lot. I love when writers do this. Every character should be treated equally, no matter how big or small their role is. In the book, however, most of these characters are non-existent. I don't know if you guys caught this, but I never used Cassie's, Molly, Charlotte's, Simon's, and Richie's images during the book segments. Eddie and Fudge, again, why did you change the name? Were the only supporting characters in this book, which honestly made me a bit sad. There are a lot of side characters, but none of them were the actual characters from the musical. I mean, they're not even hinted at. Why? You have the characters, why not use them? And while the movie doesn't erase these characters' existence like the book does, they don't have much of a presence either. They're just there. All of them say a few lines here and there, but really only Eddie and Malcolm are acknowledged in any capacity, and not by much. There's nothing that makes any of these characters stand out, not by clothes or singing skills or dancing abilities or humor. Nothing. I mean, I didn't even know Simon and Richie's names were changed to Carlos and KC. I literally had no idea until I was doing research on this movie. That's how forgettable they are. And on top of all of that, the writers broke the cool 13 characters and 13 aesthetic. So I already touched on this, but I want to address something that I found odd. There are 13 characters who are in a story titled 13, where its premise is about 13-year-olds. That's fun, and thematically, it makes sense. But this is forgotten about in the adaptation. They added another character named Z, which again, I had to look that up because the movie didn't say anything. I didn't even know she was a part of the supporting cast. It wasn't until I was editing this video that I started to notice her popping up everywhere. And I mean everywhere. And she is a part of Patrice's little friend group along with Archie. Why is she there? What value does this character give to the overall story? She definitely doesn't help Patrice's character arc in any way. What I'm trying to say is the story didn't need another teenager. So instead of 13 characters in 13, it's now 14 characters in the 13th story. With the creation of Z, it truly reveals the mindset of the people behind this adaptation. It shows they didn't take a moment to understand the supporting cast and the value they bring to the story. They just acknowledged them for the sake of the original material and add in their own creations because why not? In conclusion, all the supporting characters are forgettable, including the ones that were created specifically for this movie. The addition of adults being in 13 has been very interesting to look into. There are no adult characters in the musical besides being mentioned or interacted with off stage, like when Archie talked to Evan's mom in terminal illness. In the book, adults are a lot more involved in the story, especially Evan's parents and his new rabbi. However, they don't take up Evan's story and are only ever there if it is to help move the plot forward. Otherwise, they are usually in the background. In the movie, the adults are very much present, but are not necessarily a big active part in Evan's journey. Like the supporting characters, they're just there. There are even scenes where none of the major characters are present. Unfortunately, all the adults in this film are unnecessary and forgettable. An example is Kendra's mom. She's supposed to be this controlling figure in Kendra's life, but suddenly, after the movie date disaster, she is completely forgotten about. The mom is never brought up again. So what was the point for Kendra to constantly bring up her mom about always controlling her? When we first meet Kendra, she is always talking about wanting to make her own decisions, but she never gets that chance. Sure, she went to the movies without telling her mom, but she got caught. And after that, nothing else happens. Kendra never gets another chance to prove herself or her mom that she can make her own decisions. So we're told the mom had a major influence on the story and on Kendra, but her involvement ends up underwhelming the story and Kendra's character arc. At least with the adults in the book, they do have an effect on the story. And an example is Lucy's parents. Like, all the kids got punished for going to a rated R movie, except Lucy. For whatever reason, her parents did not seem to care. This line alone tells us all we need to know about Lucy and her family background and could possibly give us context clues about why Lucy is the way she is. And as a result of her parents not punishing her, Lucy was able to manipulate Brad and Kendra's relationship to the point where it seemed completely damaged beyond repair. This is an excellent way to incorporate adults into a teen story and help further the plot without trying to be this dominating presence with little to no influence on the story. Speaking of adults, I want to talk about Evan's mom and dad, especially involving their divorce and how that affects Evan. Divorce is an incredibly impactful event on a child's life, but each medium handles this topic in different ways. In the musical, the subject is almost never talked about, just mentioned as the musical is more focused on Evan planning his bar mitzvah and handling school drama. It also doesn't help that his mom is never shown on stage, and his dad is only mentioned a few times. All we know is that his parents' relationship is incredibly rocky at the start of the musical, and they were seen holding hands during Evan's bar mitzvah at the end of the musical. So, because the adults were not present, there isn't that much to say about this topic. In the book, we are given a lot more context on Evan's parents, their relationship, and how their divorce affects Evan. In fact, the book focuses on this subject way more than the musical or movie by a long shot. In the book, we get a better sense of who Evan's parents are. Evan's mom, Ruth, is quite shocked and understandably angry about the whole thing, but allows her emotions to control her actions. This is shown in how Ruth forces Evan to move, have a bar mitzvah, and allows him little to no say in anything involving him, becoming quite the control freak. As a result, this causes Evan to somewhat blame his mom for the divorce and forcing him to change his life, all because she, quote unquote,
can't get it together. Now, to be fair, Evan does try to express his discomfort over all the new changes, but Ruth rarely listens as she is so caught up in her grief over the situation. But then again, Evan has no issue manipulating Ruth to get what he wants either, so they're both in the wrong. And Evan's dad is a complete scumbag in this version. Like Ruth, we get a lot more context into who Evan's dad is as a character. Literally in the first page of the story, we get a real close look on who he is. Now, in the musical, it is mentioned in the 13th song that Evan's dad fell for a stewardess, but we get no context or name on who this woman is and how this relationship came about. But here in the book, we get to know all of that. Apparently, his dad met the woman on a flight, and ba-bam! Love. Or more like lust, if you ask me. Because of his actions, Evan hates his father. Throughout the book, Evan never responds back to his dad's phone calls. It isn't until Evan hits a breaking point that he finally picks up the phone. Now, Evan's dad actually apologizes, but see, the thing with this scumbag is he does a lot of apologizing, but the apologies are more like, I'm sorry you feel that way, I hope we can still make things work kind of apology. Like, this dude shows no signs of regret over what he did to his family and never truly apologizes for everything he put Evan and Ruth through. Like, at the end of the book, when Evan's dad is invited to his bar mitzvah, he acts like everything is normal. While Ruth is shown to be uncomfortable over the whole thing as no one told her he was coming, Evan's dad actively tries to get her attention. It's honestly weird. Ruth does stay civil and keeps calm over the situation, but man, what an awful thing to put a family member through. Thanks a lot, Pam.
Thank you.
Now, while all this is frustrating to read, this whole concept is incredibly well written. The book truly shows how raw and human these characters are and how messy, broken relationships like this can be, especially with how it affects Evan. There are quite a few moments where his dad's absence and neglect really influence Evan and his own actions, from how poorly he treats Patrice to how he emotionally manipulates his own mother. It has his dad written all over it. This is a pretty good example of why fathers need to be in children's lives, and the good ones at that. In the movie, the divorce still affects Evan, but it's not as emotionally prominent as in the book. We do get a lot more mother and son moments, but not for the right reasons. Like, they do have some fights here and there, but they're not really fights, more like disagreements. And Evan doesn't show any bitterness towards his mother like Book Evan did. What's interesting is that we are actively shown throughout the film that Jessica is having a hard time with the divorce, from spacing out to learning how to cook to questioning her entire life.
Same.
But her struggles never seem to affect Evan. This goes for Evan's dad as well. While he has a much smaller role in the movie compared to the book, Evan's dad has a handful of scenes where he is either trying to get a hold of Evan or talking on the phone with Jessica. And all of these moments show that Evan's dad is struggling with the divorce as well. It appears he is regretful over the situation and misses his family. He even apologizes to Evan and has a friendly conversation with Jessica by the end of the movie. The big thing here is Evan. After they move, Evan seems almost completely unbothered by the divorce, aside from not answering his dad's phone calls like Book Evan did. His mom and dad are struggling, but that never seems to affect Evan, which is kind of a problem if the main character isn't affected by something as impactful as a divorce. The only time we really get to see Evan feeling anything about the situation is when he finally answers his dad's phone call. It's a very quiet moment, but it doesn't have the same emotional impact. There are no consequences, good or bad, that happen to Evan after his talk with his dad. Sure, it gives Evan the courage to talk to Brett, but that's it. Nothing else happens involving his parents. So while the movie does address the divorce, it's not as impactful. Something that I've been putting off is the use of comedy in each version because the jokes are wild. The musical is full of humor that I don't think is teen appropriate at all. The tongue jokes are strange to hear from preteens, and this type of comedy gets dangerously close to sexual territory. And topics like drugs, suicide, slut-shaming, fat jokes, eating disorders, and illnesses of any kind are brought up that the musical loves to poke fun at. Now, the musical was made in 2008, a time where these types of jokes were met with laughter or at least with an eye roll and quickly forgotten about. But now, looking from the future, these jokes seem pretty horrific. Now, I do want to state that I don't think it's wrong to make these types of jokes. I do think society has become way too soft when it comes to comedy, but there is a line. And at times, the line was crossed for the sake of being funny, especially when these jokes are coming from preteens. Why are comments like these allowed? Should they be allowed? Especially if these topics are considered normal. Should it be considered normal for child actors to say these lines and not only saying them, but acting them out as well? Should that be considered okay? I'm sure all of us have our own opinions, but for me, no. I do not consider this okay. I think a lot of these jokes should stay far away from teen musicals. These are adult conversations that should be discussed with trusted parents, grandparents, guardians, etc. Honestly, if we lived in a perfect world, teens shouldn't even know concepts like suicide, drugs, etc. These are heavy topics that young minds do not have a way of grasping yet, and certainly shouldn't make fun of others for. Like the fat jokes that were brought up or the slut shaming. If this is considered normal for 12-year-olds to know, then something is wrong. Now, I will give credit for the jokes surrounding Archie's illness and Evan being Jewish. These kinds of jokes never crossed a line and actually made sense within the context of the musical. It never felt like you were laughing at Archie and Evan, but laughing with them. And that's what a good joke is supposed to do. Jokes are not supposed to be there for the sake of shock value. Now, the book is even worse in regards to comedy. The tongue jokes seem to never stop, and all of the characters except Patrice and Kendra are always hyper focused on kissing and sex. Not just Brett and his sidekicks like in the musical. I would even argue that Book Archie is way worse than Brett in neither version when it comes to the amount of tongue jokes Archie says. There's also a handful of swearing in the book, a book written for children, mind you, and some other adult humor that made me roll my eyes to freaking space. Again, there is a line, and that line was crossed numerous times throughout the story. Like, why is there swearing in a children's novel? Why? What value does that add to the story? And to even end the book on one last tongue joke, like, these tongue jokes are the equivalent to potty humor or your mom type of jokes. It's just so stupid.
I don't like that. I'm done.
Now, this is where I will give credit to the movie. All these jokes are completely gone. No tongue, no slut shaming, no drugs, no swearing, nothing. It's a miracle. However, because all these jokes were taken out, new jokes were put in. And, no, they are so cringy. We might as well not have any jokes at all. I don't understand why writers cannot find a happy medium when it comes to comedy. I know writing comedy is hard. Trust me, I've done it, and it's very, very hard. But it always feels like an all or nothing type of case. We neither get adult humor with lots of swearing and sex, or kid humor with a side of cringe. The 13 story should be funny and relatable, but it also needs to be family friendly since the story is centered around preteens. There needs to be a compromise, and unfortunately, none of these versions have found that compromise.
Now, naturally, because Evan is Jewish and the story centers around the planning of the bar mitzvah, religion is another important topic in 13. What's great about the musical is that this concept is expressed through what is called a motif. Evan is excited about the idea of having a ceremony and party, albeit a little nervous, and he expresses this nervousness through a section called Becoming a Man.
I'm becoming a man.
A motif that is played throughout the show. Now, this number is not religious. Musical Evan does not have an issue with Judaism, so he is a lot more positive and optimistic about things, but he still has a lot of questions about what's good and bad, right and wrong. This automatically makes the musical focus more on Evan's moral choices than it does on his religious journey. And the musical sticks with this idea through Becoming a Man, as it symbolizes Evan's character arc. The book, however, heavily focuses on religion. Book Evan could care less about the ceremony, but his mom forces him to have one anyway. And because the writing shows Evan's innermost thoughts, we find he really really doesn't understand Judaism and the point of even having a religion. Now, the book still focuses on popularity and all the trouble Evan goes through, but that storyline seems to coincide with his religious journey. In early chapters, all Evan cares about is being popular.
Popular. You're gonna be popular.
He doesn't care about his speech or learning Hebrew or having any kind of deep conversations with anyone. But through his rabbi, he comes to understand that popularity isn't all that important in the grand scheme of things. There are scattered conversations here and there where the rabbi lectures Evan about Judaism, and at first, Evan doesn't acknowledge these talks. But when he hits rock bottom in chapter 15, he finally starts listening. And the reason why he starts listening is because Evan himself acknowledges he needs help. He needs to change. While the book obviously is not a musical, thus not having the motif becoming a man, the book does a great job expressing this idea. This conversation basically becomes the catalyst to events like accepting his dad's flaws, apologizing to Patrice and Archie, and standing up to his mother. By the end of the book, Evan is the one who decides he wants a bar mitzvah, whether anyone comes or not. This focus on religion is not done in neither the musical or movie. Both mediums focus on Evan's moral choices because he already accepted the idea of being Jewish. Book Evan had a different problem. He couldn't accept this part of himself, and instead focused on gaining popularity, which resulted in shallow relationships and losing himself in the process. Once he acknowledged his own flaws, Evan's character arc took a turn for the best, making the story very impactful. In the movie, because it's a musical adaptation, you would hope the creators kept the motif that connects the entire story, and no, they didn't. They cut out the becoming a man section from the very first musical number, so by extension, every other time this motif should come up, it couldn't, because it was never introduced in the first place. This then removes an essential part of who Evan is as a character. Suddenly, Evan doesn't have any fears anymore. He doesn't have any questions about morality or religion. Sure, there is a rabbi in the movie, but he doesn't impact Evan in any way, besides giving Evan a scolding here and there for skipping a few lessons. Even the part about planning a bar mitzvah is quickly solved, as inviting people to come isn't difficult. Once Evan invites the popular kids, everyone is on board with very little hesitation. There's no conflict or pushback from any of the characters. While the musical and book strictly focus on convincing everyone to come to the party and figuring out ways to go about that, movie Evan has already succeeded in that goal by the beginning of Act 2. He gets to chill compared to his predecessors.
What's up, guys?
Once Evan invites everybody, the movie shifts entirely to focus on Brett and Kendra's relationship. So at that point, everything revolving around Evan is taken a back seat, including his morality and religion, because there isn't much to talk about anymore. Also, Evan is just a straight up nice, polite kid with hardly any flaws, even though the movie tries very, very hard to gaslight us into thinking he has flaws. So he feels incredibly one-dimensional. That's another reason why the movie feels so hollow, because our main character doesn't struggle at all. There is nothing for him to question and discover to get him from point A to point B. I think it's always interesting when religion is brought up in stories, because when you involve something so intimate and personal like that, it always adds another layer of storytelling. Maybe that's why the book stands out so much for me. I don't really like the book, but because of the religious aspect, it caused me to respect the story. The musical does a good job too, because it adds this extra layer of vulnerability from Evan in the form of a motif. But with those thoughts, this causes the movie to have a glaring problem. When you take away the story's principles, all you are left with is this surface level, delusional positivity where life is fair and the world is happy if you try hard enough. And that's not reality. If there is no depth, then there is nothing important to talk about. When you take away something like the becoming a man motif, you take away the emotional quality that is 13. Now, after discussing every single possible aspect of this story, let's finally answer the question, which one do I think is the best version? And if you made it this far into the video, 1, thank you so much for your time. I know this is an incredibly long video. 2, it's probably obvious which version I think best presents the 13 story, and it is the original Broadway musical, the OG. Now, while I don't care for the jokes and sense of humor that the musical has, I can look past all of that and see the absolute gold that is in this story. From the musical numbers to the relatable characters to a well-written, simple story about growing up, I really and truly enjoy this musical. The book would be in second place because I do respect the writers for going deeper into heavier topics like religion and divorce. And I'm sure it's no surprise that the movie is dead last. While I do appreciate that the jokes and some of the more inappropriate scenes from the musical and book got taken out, the overall movie is just way too cringy, and the plot, when you really look at it, doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Honestly, if there was a way to combine the heart of the musical with the seriousness of the book while keeping things fresh and family friendly from the movie, I think we would have the perfect version of 13. As you can see, I can go on and on about these adaptations for a long time, so I think it's best to call it a day. Take it away, KM from several months ago.
So if I'm here at the end of this video, that means I actually got the video done? Question mark? Oh, that would be an absolute miracle if I got this video finished. Genuinely, I didn't think this video would take this long or be that hard to make, but I should have known better. Again, different creators have said that it takes them months, if not years, to make these kinds of videos. So I don't know what I expected from myself. I'm just glad I got it done. That's all that matters at this point. Just the amount of researching, writing, filming, editing that these kinds of videos need to have is crazy. And I'm not sure if this is something that I want to do again, but at least I can say I did it. I tried it. And I do think comparison videos are fun. I like to watch them personally, so I don't know why I'm surprised I decided to make this type of video. I like watching them, so why not make one? But I think what has made 13 so captivating for me is that even though the concepts and themes are not new in the slightest, it's presented in a way that feels fresh and nostalgic. The story feels real. The characters feel relatable. Either I see myself in one of those characters, or I know people like those characters in real life. Or there are certain things in the story that I have personally been through. You can't really say that about a lot of middle school, high school stories out there. I mean, turn on any streaming service and there are at least 10 shows or movies that revolve around teenage drama, school drama, and most of these stories feel meaningless. They bring nothing new to the table. But 13, once you know about it, stands out from all those other TV shows, movies, books, etc. Maybe it's because it's a musical and it has a very well done score. Maybe it's because of the characters and how relatable they feel. Or maybe it's just the jokes. I don't know. What is your favorite adaptation of 13? And let me know if this is a video you would like more of. I mean, I hope it's enjoyable and I hope you did at least learn something from this video, but golly, man, this video. If you saw the word count of how long the script was, oh dear. Anyways, this is KM, and if you enjoy this video, don't forget to like and subscribe so you can follow along with me in discovering or rediscovering musicals. See you later.